We've got Jeremy Chris, Mike Scheffel, and Derek Harrigan. All right, welcome. It's good to see you in person. It's new personnel since. And Gene Smith prepared a packet for us. We can dive in unless there's any preliminary comments. All right.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Reamer. As you said, we'll be reviewing the executive's recommendation for the recommended fiscal 23 Office of Agricultural operating budget. As always, I want to thank our colleagues from the Office of Agriculture and OMB in providing information and helping me prepare this packet. The executive's recommendation this year for the Office of Agriculture is a modest increase of about $46,500 or 4.6% from the approved fiscal 22 budget. It does include a new FTE for business development in the Office of Agricultural, as well as some inflationary adjustments for their contracts. As noted in the staff report, the Office of Agriculture receives FTEs through multiple funding sources. Their executive recommends 5.15 FTEs of the Office of Agriculture, with other FTEs funded through the Water Quality Protection Fund and the CIP. So, as the PHED committee reviewed and recommended during this capital improvement program's budget for the agricultural preservation CIP project, this year the FTEs for the CIP will remain in the budget, but next year the expectation is they will be funded through the operating budget, at least in the numbers that need to be, as well as the operating expenses. So with that, I will I'll briefly go through a couple of the program areas that are in this budget. I have some expenditure discussions at the end, but I think before I get into those, we'll give a chance for the Office of Ag to make any comments that they want, but I just want to note some high-level elements of this budget. So there are three program areas that the executive, or that OMB tracks for this budget. The first is agricultural services, which is the primary core mission of the Office of Ag, and this represents about 61% of the recommended budget in fiscal 23. The next is the soil conservation program area. That's primarily funded, the FTEs are funded through the Water Quality Protection Fund for that one, but it does service, is managed through the Office of Agriculture. And the final one is the University of Maryland Partner Extension Program, which is also partly funded through this budget. So with that, I'll go back to you, Mr. Reamer, see if the Office of Ag has anything they want to share about the executive's recommended budget, and then I'll note the additional personnel and other items in this budget, and we can go through those one at a time.
Okay, great. Well, we have a monster agenda for today. So I will turn it to Mr. Chris, and we'll get a presentation. I just want to say we have a lot of stuff to move through, so we'll seek to be efficient, and thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Jeremy Chris, Office of Ag, Mike Scheffel. We're very pleased by the county executive's support for a business development specialist position that essentially will be reinstating a position that was riffed back in 2010. So it's been 12 years that we've been trying. Yeah. And so, and we have new areas of responsibility with climate change and racial equity and social justice. And we've got new and beginning farmer program. We've got the Office of Food Resiliency that we're working with our expanded farm to food bank program. We've got 36 farmers that have agreed to grow more local food for wholesale production sold to Manna. And so we've done that just during the pandemic, and it's a very exciting program. We were here for the Ag Day proclamation, so several of the farmers that participated with that program were here. The engineering position in the Soil Conservation District is necessary because the NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, informed all of the soil conservation districts last fall that starting January of this year, they were no longer going to be providing assistance, technical assistance for small water quality containment ponds, which are important for the MS4 permit that DEP is in charge of in the urban area, as well as small ponds on farms. So we've had a real increase in technical assistance requests from all types of people that want to get back to growing or want an ag building. And so we've kept all the data for county stat to show the increase in requests for technical assistance. So I'll stop there and really look forward to your support. And we're doing a lot of really exciting things in the Office of Ag with ag tourism and farm alcohol production. Friday. I know, Andrew, you were at the Landmade ribbon cutting with Mike. We have another one with Two Chimney Cider coming up this Friday. So
I was
anyway,
wearing my Two Chimney T-shirt proudly this weekend.
Okay.
It's a great new facility. Excited for Landmade. Great. So this sounds like the new position has a lot of the emerging areas that are, we're seeking to kind of broaden and deepen different work that the office performs, and we need this position in order to make that happen.
Including agrivoltaic,
Right.
with the pilot that's out at the Polesville Golf Course. So we're working for moving on that. It's a small pilot, but we want to start to demonstrate that we can have solar and ag coexist together.
Right.
So
this position would also be overseeing that
absolutely.
initiative. Great. Okay. Andrew.
Yeah, thanks. 12 years, a long time, and we've been asking the Office of Agriculture to do a lot. I think probably more than we've ever asked you to do, and I think adding this position is going to be really helpful for all of these projects. I'm also looking forward to Ag in the Classroom, getting back going now after a hiatus. Really appreciate working together with colleagues, Councilmember Jawando, in particular, and Chair Reamer. We push for funding for that, as you know, and I know all of us are big supporters of that. So I am strongly in support of adding this position. I think it's very much needed, particularly in the areas of climate and access to agricultural programs for a greater diversity of farmers, which I know has been a big priority of the office. You're an economic development office and a technical assistance office, in addition to subject matter experts and in agriculture and the science that it requires. And so I appreciate the fact that we're moving forward with that. And I also just wanted to note, and it's noted in the packet, but the action that we took previously in the capital budget related to next year's operating budget of making sure that we are properly funding the office through the operating budget for operating expenses so that we can have funding appropriately for ag preservation, which is really the primary purpose of the office. Although, as we've heard today, other duties as assigned has grown on the ledger every single year. So this certainly will help us to move forward with that. I have some questions on Marbidco, but I think we can wait until we get to that point in the packet, unless you want me to ask a couple of those questions quickly now.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to know, in FY22, have you had to, or do you expect to need to turn anybody away for lack of funds in Marbidco?
So we've never turned anyone away that has applied for our matching grant cost share program that we leverage county dollars with state dollars from Marbidco. And what we do is we'll say we're going to have a new allocation of money on July 1st. So some of the folks right now, there's a few that are waiting until July 1st where we'll have some additional monies. We have used up all of FY22, but we're not turning anybody away. It's just they're in the queue, they're in line, and we're going to get to them here in July. So.
Got it. So they're being delayed, but not necessarily denied.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay. When was the point at which you no longer had funds in the account to do the match for this fiscal year?
Yeah, the third quarter analysis was due on the 18th of April. So Jackie and I went through that, and that's where we saw that we just need to hold the line. We also have another program that we use our operating budget for to promote soil health. We provide a free delivery of leaf grow to one farmer each year. We pay for the leaf grow and the delivery. With inflation and the price of diesel fuel, now it's about $200 more. We used to pay about $687 for one load. Now we're just under $1,000. So that program is very well received, but it also uses up our money as well.
So in Marbidco, the $25,000 that you get, it's a match between, the county's essentially matching the funds here.
25-25.
And that fund ran out of money when? Just before the end of the third quarter?
Just beginning of April. So those folks will wait until July. We have 3 One of them's a deer fence. The other is a walk-in cold storage. And I'd have to check with Jackie on the third one. But the process does take time anyway. You have to submit an application to Marbidco, and you have to wait until it's approved. You can't buy anything ahead of time. And once you get the approval from Marbidco, then we instruct folks to execute the estimate if it's deer fence, or go ahead and install the cold storage. We've purchased irrigation equipment, so.
If we added a modest amount of money to be able to honor requests that come in throughout the fiscal year, I would say like $10,000, for instance, would that be able to be matched at the state? Like, there's no issue with the state side of this.
Last year, you gave us an additional $25,000 to take care of the matching issue that we had with Marbidco, and so I would not recommend any additional money for FY23 for our cost share program. We're rated a $50,000 program between Marbidco's 25 and Montgomery County's 25. So it works great. You guys have supported us last year, and it helped us. It really did.
Great. Okay. Well, this is a really important program. They're really modest expenses, but important, critical expenses for the farmers that they're supporting. And so just keep us posted on that. And if there's an opportunity for the state to add a little bit more and for us to add a little bit more, I think we ought to look into that. But it sounds like not for this fiscal year, but maybe for subsequent fiscal years, we can work with our state partners and figure that out. But I am very pleased that we were able to do that $25,000. It seems like it's working really well, and so let's just keep an eye on it as we move forward. And if there's an opportunity to get a match on both sides, county and state, then I think we ought to look into that for subsequent fiscal years. But appreciate that. Thanks for everything that you're doing. I'm glad that we're finally giving you the support that you need. And I will just say, as you mentioned, I just wanted to add the grape crushing facility, Crossvines. I think several of us will be there later this week, and that's going to be a big boon for our agritourism and winery industry as we move forward. And I know that the Office of Agriculture is going to play a big part in helping some of those facilities move forward, provide the technical assistance they need. So we're going to try to give you more work, and we're going to try to give you the support that you need in order to do that work. And I appreciate that colleagues on this committee have really tried to do that. So thank you.
All right, Councilmember Jawanda.
Thank you. And it's I was looking at the chart here. One of the ones waiting is Fresh Mama Farms, which sounds great, so for the deer fence, for the more Bidcos.
Right.
Yeah, so hopefully Mama will be getting what she needs here soon. Couldn't resist. But really happy to see you all. Appreciate what you're able to do with modest improvements. Glad to hear about this new position, and that you're always very, just as you just answered that question, you're very, studious about what you're talking about, but also you hold back. You don't ask for something you can't use, and I really appreciate that. So definitely support the extra position, and look forward to walking through the rest of the packet. But good to see you guys in person. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, great. Well, thank you. And as has been noted, over the past couple of years, we have really been adding resources into these program areas. We're really pleased to see the progress, the work we did with the capital budget to outline a stronger plan for the next several years to provide more funding for easements, to provide more resources for staff to do the technical work in a whole wide array of areas. It's exciting, and we're looking forward to seeing your success. Big shout out to Bob Sissel for being here. Bob's always here at the council when the time is right, and we're glad you're here and appreciate the continuing participation of the Montgomery agricultural producers and all of our farmers. Jeremy.
So I really want to just say thanks to Derek and Jean for putting together very informative packets. It makes my job a lot easier to represent the Office of Ag. And I want to thank the council for the support that you've all given us with our CIP, and I'm hoping that we'll get the support today with these two positions that are really going to be important for the Office of Ag moving forward. I'm going to probably be retiring next year, and so I'm going to have those folks on board to train, and so that's what is exciting, to be able to train folks like Mike. He's a wizard. He usually knows the answer for things before I even ask him it. But anyway, I am.
He was
very-
nodding in agreement before he said that.
Yeah, but it's been a great working with the farm community and folks like Bob and the Ag Advisory Committee and MAP, Soil Conservation District. But I really have a few more things that I want to achieve before I throw in the towel. But the main thing is to make sure some young people know really what we're doing and what's happening on a daily basis, and because we're very fortunate to have such a diverse agricultural industry here in the county, and it's just been a real pleasure. But
Well, I think Andrew will have to think long and hard about applying for your job.
so, well, we'll see. That's going to replacing me is something that we'll have to talk about how that was done the last time, so that there's participation from the ag community. They really do need to contribute in the process, and so that's what they did, many years ago.
In the selection process.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
Hal Baker was the chair of the Ag Advisory Committee. Billy Willard was the chair of the Ag Preservation Board, and then George Lecklider, he was the president of the Farm Bureau and chair of the Soil Conservation District. So they were the three farmers that met with David Edgerly. He was the director of economic development, and they interviewed all the folks that applied. And so that worked out really well, because then they just, you really need to have the leaders of the ag community. They're the ones that really have their pulse on agriculture on a daily basis in the county. And so that's how I would recommend it should be replicated.
Thank you. Well, we'll look forward to continuing that conversation over the course of the year. All right. Thank you so much. We all are in agreement about the budget. Yeah.
I just wanted to, sorry.
I was just going to say, we'll have time. I know all of us are going to want to talk about what you have meant to the ag community. Now is not the time for that, but I just wanted to note how much we appreciate it. And I think some of the work that we've done over the last few years are a credit really to your leadership and your advocacy. And I'm looking forward to having this position restored after 12 years. I'm looking forward to cleaning up and fixing the budgeting dynamics that we've done to put the ag community and the Office of Agriculture in a better position. And I know all of us have a goal of making sure when you leave that we honor and appreciate your legacy, but that we also make sure that we're leaving the ag community and the Office of Agriculture in the best possible position. I think, thanks to your leadership and your help, we're moving the ball forward in this budget and in prior decisions that we've made to do that. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. We will look forward to celebrating your tenure at the appropriate time. All right. Thank you. Gene.
I just wanted to note one quick thing, since we were talking about two positions. The one position is being added to the Office of Ag, which the Fed Committee is reviewing today. The second one's being funded through the Water Quality Protection Fund, which the T&E Committee will review through the Department of Environmental Protection. So I stated that in the report. I just wanted to clarify that here, that the Fed Committee is only dealing with the one position. Obviously, the T&E will also review that. Council staff can make a note to that committee that the Fed Committee is recommending approval of this position.
Got it.
Appreciate that.
But you're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Jeremy, whoever replaces you has to be able to know the date, time, and clothing, and size and weight of everything so just work on that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. I'll ask you later what you're talking about. Okay.
He knows all the facts, man. Yeah, that's the way he is.
All right. Okay, incubator programs. So, it's a big topic here. I want to gather my thoughts here. We've been working over the past year on first of all, reimagining and redeploying an incubator strategy. And today's conversation is a major step in that process. And we have a proposal from the executive branch that identifies positions that will implement a new vision for the program. And we're excited to see that, so we're going to talk about that. And as part of these conversations, we have been working on the idea of creating a incubator for underserved entrepreneurs and business owners. And we want that to be part of this. And so, I think we need to I think today's conversation should be viewed as, not the last conversation probably, because we have to sort of identify all these pieces and how the next few steps are going to happen over the coming weeks. Because there's also funding in the executive's office and the Office of Business Advancement, and everything kind of has to correlate. But very broadly on that topic, we're grateful executives sent funding in the Office of Business Advancement, and the committee's recommendation for an appropriation to support underserved business owners, Black Business Roundtable, database, all of that. What I think we can do, and the council president said that the appropriation for FY22 will be on the agenda next week. We can send a PHED committee letter to recommend to GO how to annualize that appropriation in the, what's that?
So, good news. I believe we already approved that on Friday. So
You approved, well, did you, okay, I'm not sure what you approved on Friday, but what we wanted you to approve, and hopefully that's what you did approve, is the annualization of the programs that we have been working on in the supplemental appropriation. Is that what you did?
Yes.
we did the fiscal year 23 annualization of the special appropriation that we worked on here. So
Good news.
I think we should acknowledge that here, but I'm not sure that a letter is necessary.
Well, if it's already done, we don't have to send a letter.
But appreciate the fine work of our colleagues in the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy
All right.
Committee. Always helps to have a committee member on another committee.
Thank you for being there. All right. Waving the PHED flag. All right. So just to say again.
Fed was acknowledged in that conversation.
Naturally. So just to say again, the FY23 appropriation in the Office of Business Advancement reflects the proposal from the committee, and so that is the annualization. Then the supplemental will be on the agenda next week, and so the FY22 amounts will be there. A lot will go to contracting, and so the executive branch is going to have lots of full hands to move the contracts through the process. And then within that, I wanted to make sure we can hone in today on the underserved business, the entrepreneurship strategy within the incubators and how that's going to be staffed. And our thought was that this program, there would be the staff person who would manage all of those programs that are in the Office of Business Advancement NDA. I don't know if it's an NDA, but program. Because there needs to be one person who is in charge of making sure that all the pieces are coordinated together and everything is getting done and moving forward. So I want to make sure we get a chance to find out if there was I don't know if there was a different approach that was recommended out of the committee, but our previous thought had been that the person in the incubator program who would be putting, forward, managing the process and running that program, I think there will be a natural person to be an executive leader for the whole program. I think that's what I wanted to say. I'll think about if I missed anything else. Otherwise, we'll dive into it. Gene, can you start us off, and then we'll go through into our discussion.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Reamer. And again, just like for the Office of Ag, I want to acknowledge our partners and colleagues in the executive side, both in the Office of the County Executive and Office of Managed Budget, who worked with me tirelessly on kind of making sure this information was updated and ready for today, and appreciate all their efforts. I think the packet is divided in kind of two main categories because the incubator's non-departmental account houses several things, and so I'll go through two different pieces separately. One is the incubators, the other is the contracts for programs. I think we should talk about those separately after we talk about the incubator strategy. The other thing I would like to note is that Mr. Elrich on April 19th sent a budget amendment for this particular NDA, adding $235,349, partly because they did not fully include all of the personnel expenditures as it was meant to. And so the total budget for this looks different than what was recommended on March 15th. Council staff, as we go through today, will use the total recommended expenditures from Mr. Elrich for April 19th. But as noted in the packet, the committee, if it wants to concur with those, will need to add them to the list just for the purposes of tracking, since March 15th budget is kind of the baseline for tracking this budget. So just some introductory comments related to this NDA. And then, so we'll talk about incubators. Mr. Reamer, you've already begun talking about that, but again, the Table 2 on page 2 gives you a breakdown and gives anyone looking at home a breakdown of the April 19th recommended expenditures for this NDA for all the programs, staff, and incubators. So the county has 3 incubators we still fund with operating expenditures, both the Germantown Innovation Center, the Germantown Innovation Center, the Rockville Innovation Center, and the Silver Spring Innovation Center. The executive has recommended adding 3 FTEs, 1 for each of those incubators to help manage. As the committee discussed throughout 2021, the county executive is trying to re-envision how the incubators are managed. Previously, we had third-party managers for both the portfolio and operations, while the county took care of some of the operating expenditures for some of these incubators. Moving forward in fiscal 23, the executive is recommending that the county manage them fully, both in terms of a tenant portfolio, programming, et cetera. And so what I will do after I go through some more, I will let the executive staff share more about that vision if they wish. As noted also in the packet, MCDC provided a review of the incubator study that the committee did review and made a similar recommendation, which the incubator study had made, which is the county should look at the ecosystem as a whole, not management of individual facilities. And again, the 3 FTEs that are being recommended are part of that vision. And so each of the incubators has a unique kind of ecosystem it currently works in. How that may or may not change in the coming years will depend on some of the markets, some of how it's implemented. As noted by Mr. Reamer, the Silver Spring Innovation Center has been one of the places the county and that this committee has been looking at to expand its role in serving underserved communities and businesses. But ultimately, for the fiscal 23 recommended budget, what the committee will need to consider today is if it wants to concur with the executive's recommendation of adding 3 FTEs to that particular expense side of this. And then once the committee considers that, we can move into the program areas, which are the individual contracts that this NDA also funds. So I will pause there for just consideration of the incubator's expenditures in this budget.
Okay, great. So we're going to hear now from Jake and Jake Weissman and Ruth Semple and Victor. Apologize if you're again new faces in person. It's not my forte, despite being a politician.
Richard Ciceros.
Okay, Mr. Ciceros, welcome.
Team. Thank you.
Very glad you're here. Your smiling face is already making me feel better, so thank you. Okay, so we're going to turn it over to our team now. I also just want to plant a flag. Where are we taking up the nonprofit village? I want to make sure we address that in the course of this discussion. We'll just put a pin in that, Gene, and we'll come back to that.
We will get back to that.
Okay. All right, great. So, Ruth, I think you're up, and I want to thank you for being. I first met you in an incubator.
Yes.
I think that was about 11 years ago, something maybe 12 years ago, and I came out of that meeting really impressed by your savvy, and over the years you've really just done so much, and so I know you've got some smart plans here, and let's hear from you.
Yes. Good morning, and thank you so very much for your kind words. So we do have some nice plans for the incubators, and I'd like to add that since the Department of Economic Development closed and we've been contracting out a lot of our incubator programming and marketing and portfolio management, we've just really been dealing with a lot of instability. So bringing this back in-house, we had to bring it back in-house initially for some financial stability, and we need to continue bringing the rest of it back in-house so that we have stability in terms of our marketing, our programming, and also it makes it easier for us, I think, to reach out and work with our other partner organizations. So I'm really excited about the Black-owned business initiative that will be kicking off in Silver Spring. I think it's a very good fit for that particular facility. It's something that we have experience with, we've done before. I think there's resources and passion, and
Okay.
I'm really hopeful that that particular program will help revive our Silver Spring Innovation Center.
All right, awesome. So I just wanted to restate this because this is a big deal.
It
So
is.
we have an incubator in downtown Silver Spring.
Right.
Downtown Silver Spring, which is already probably the county's and maybe one of the region's hubs of Black-owned business. And we are going to, it's presently 60% unoccupied.
Right.
We've tried a number of things over the years. And while we've been trying things, Silver Spring itself has become an incubator of sorts of Black-owned business. Now we're trying to say we're going to also have a strong agenda here, and we're going to devote space and, most important, devote programming. And the programming will be available in the space, but also countywide.
That's right. So the Silver Spring Innovation Center can very easily serve as a hub for this entire initiative that can really be countywide. And so I think when we sort out which partners are going to do exactly what, we will, I know I personally will be working with whoever we hire to sit down there, and I'll be spending a lot of time down there myself to make sure that if there are any gaps that we're getting them filled. I've already been talking to some of the Black-owned business owners that are CEOs that have graduated from all of our incubators to see if they will come back and participate in some way, and letting them know that this is coming down the road. So there is excitement. I think we'll have support from the community, and I think we'll be able to collate and coordinate a lot of resources for our Black-owned businesses and also our small minority women and disabled-owned businesses, because there will also be a heavy focus on procurement in that particular facility. Right. It is in a hub zone, and we have resources with our friends at the SBDC, the PTAP, our friends at MCEDC. We can bring in resources to bring a lot of, and our Richard, who's got a lot of background in procurement, to bring procurement expertise to that facility, which can be used in that facility, and also the public can come and join and learn and be able to tap into procurement opportunities at the federal level, the state level. Large private companies often have supplier diversity programs, and of course
Can I
the
just
county's
comment
program.
there? So first of all, in the annualization of the appropriations, there's funding for those organizations that you just referred
Exactly.
to. And that is intended to be
Right.
leveraged into this incubator strategy.
Right.
And I was just amazed to see recently the Greater Washington Partnership, which is a regional brain trust of large corporate players and policy thinkers, announcing a combined initiative to focus their procurement on supporting Black-owned business in the Washington region. So our timing here is great. And the point about procurement is it's about providing assistance, as you said. We're not just talking about county contracts, although that's important. We're talking about federal, state, county, and private sector. And there's
That's
probably more opportunities, maybe even in private sector than even in government.
Yes.
But you'll know that better than I do. But so we're going to provide that kind of assistance through this strategy and help businesses really accelerate on their path.
Yes.
And I can just say, I was just talking to a friend of mine who is an entrepreneur last week. His company recently relocated into the county. He's got a very successful company. They've done federal and DC contracting, and he does not know yet how to get started in Maryland. And boom, a successful entrepreneur with maybe 40 or 50 employees moved to the county because it's a great place to live, wants to get active. Here, now we're going to have programming for that.
We're really
that
looking
kind of
forward
entrepreneur.
to kicking things off.
It's a
in
husband and
Silver
wife
Spring.
team, I should say. It's a
Okay.
husband and wife team.
All right, we'll be on the lookout for him. Feel free to refer him right to us. We'll get him
We
started.
will.
Thank you.
Okay, so, but my question for you, how do we ensure that the person that we hire has contemporary, expertise is like the best that the private sector really produces. Because one of the challenges we had in the past with our DED was people were getting pushed into that department out of other departments in the county government. And that's not the right way to say it, but we didn't have people who had the most expertise. And, it all depends on that. And there are so many like really talented people out there. How do we ensure that we're going to get someone who can come in here and make this thing really work?
Well, we're going to have to be very careful and think carefully about the skill sets that we want to hire for these three positions. Personally, I believe that we can teach a lot about incubator management. We've got a lot of experience there. We can teach that and work somebody into that. But what we really do need, you're exactly right, are some procurement expertise. I don't know where that person's going to come from, but I think we're going to have to be very careful how we craft the job description, how we advertise for it, to find someone with a good procurement background, and we can teach them the rest.
All right, colleagues. Adrian.
Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for all the work. I think that this strategy, particularly around Silver Spring and Black-owned businesses, I think is really exciting, and really credit to my colleagues for their leadership and to you for your partnership on that. I have two main questions here. One, how I would frame it is we need private sector experience, and I think that should be part of the job description and part of the qualifications. And I think that's one of the areas where we have erred perhaps in the past, where we undervalued that. And it's no surprise that you could know how to run and manage things on the public sector side and have a lot of experience there. But if we have nobody who really has those deep partnerships and background and experience in the private sector, then being the person responsible for serving at the intersection of the public and the private sector becomes very challenging. And so I would highly recommend that private sector experience be a part, and I would say, a very essential part of the qualifications for those that we're looking for to serve in these in that particular role and in these three roles. The second one, I raised this before, I'll raise it again. I think procurement is a great area, but I don't think that it should be our primary economic strategy as a county. I think our goal needs to be to get out of government as a primary function. We need to diversify our economy, and I think we need to be a lot more intentional about diversifying our economy. And I think the challenge that we've had in the past is that we're overly reliant, particularly on the federal government, but on government in general. And if you look at the state's economy, and particularly you look at the county's economy, we are, we're not just attached at the hip, we're attached at the hip, the knee, the ankle, and the toe. And, we need to venture out a little bit more. And so I am hopeful that an incubator helps to do that. It could be part of the strategy, but it can't be the entire strategy, because I think that fails to meet the need that we have in the county and the entrepreneurial genius that we have here, particularly in Silver Spring, but throughout the county. I also think that it diminishes in some ways the potential that our Black-owned businesses have and the creativity that they have if we assume, I think wrongly, that
oh dear. Okay. This doesn't seem as bad as it looks, actually. It might just be the lights.
I think my point was either really right or really wrong.
All right.
Whatever it was very dramatic. Yeah, so I don't want to pigeonhole that. We don't want to say that certain types of businesses and certain types of entrepreneurs should be focused on certain types of business, particularly government contracting, because I think that's a disservice to everybody. So I'm not suggesting that you're doing that. I just want to make sure that that is noted as part of the conversation, and I want to make sure that if we have a focus in procurement and in government contracting, then that not be the only area that we are really doubling down on our efforts in connection with with particularly black-owned businesses, but with all businesses, because I do think we need to diversify our economy desperately
Yes.
if we're going to be competitive in the region, in the country, and throughout the world. The second piece is, so this is to address Silver Spring. We've talked about that, and Silver Spring has not worked, and we're going to change it. And I think that is important. Just as important as succeeding is recognizing when you're not succeeding, and changing what you're doing is important. The vacancy rate in Rockville is almost just as high. I mean, 60% in Silver Spring, but it's 50% in Rockville. And it's not clear to me what the strategy is besides moving everything over to the county in terms of responsibility as part of the report and hiring somebody. It's not clear to me what the strategy is for how we address that 50% vacancy rate, and how do we have a relevant incubator that's actually doing what we want it to do, and what, most importantly, entrepreneurs are looking for it to do. So could you just share with us what the thought is there?
Yes. So Rockville has typically, and still today, attracts a group of companies that are working in the intersection of healthcare, clinical trial, data, cybersecurity, and where it intersects with health records. So the companies are typically software companies, but they're working in where those industries converge, typically. We do have a lot of vacancy at Rockville now. It is a concern of mine. Right now, I'm actually speaking to a couple of different partner organizations to see if they will, and they're very excited, but we don't have any announcements to make just yet, but to bring additional resources and partner organizations to the Rockville Incubator that would fit into those industry sectors that I just named, to attract companies, assist with programming, and raise the level of programming and opportunities and resources available in those sectors at that facility. We have a couple companies that are expanding, post-COVID, are either coming back or expanding, so that's good, but there's still a lot of vacancy. I am still particularly challenged by the space in the facility that we once set up for an accelerator. We're now somewhat using as co-working space. It's not particularly successful, and I'm still looking and working on trying to find a better use for that space. So I'm working a lot and thinking a lot, talking to a lot of people on programming at Rockville, because I think we can improve the vacancy and increase the number of companies that we serve by focusing on programming there around cyber, electronic health records, big data, where all of that converges. And play off of the companies that are currently in the facility. So that's the thinking for Rockville at the moment. Quite frankly, if we spend money and time working on programming for all these facilities and they still are obsolescent and not well used, then, sometime down the road, we're going to have to think about repurposing the real estate. But I don't think we're quite there yet. We've had a lot of instability, contractors coming and going. We need some stability and some focus and see what we can do. But that's our current thinking for Rockville.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
We just approved an economic development strategic plan. It's the
Yes.
comprehensive plan that we've all agreed to.
Yes.
I think we got to pick one area, or maybe two areas, that have been identified as the opportunities to win. And if we're going to focus, I would focus on one of those. Mm-hmm. And if there's not one that works that's on that menu, we should change the menu.
Agreed.
Because it means that the menu doesn't work. So one way or another, we've got to align our strategies as we move forward. And so I would suggest that we, take that. We have hospitality tech. There would be an opportunity, I would think. The opportunities in quantum that are discussed in that plan as one of the opportunities to win. Let's pick one, maybe two, and let's move forward. And if it doesn't work, let's change it. But I think we got to align with that.
We are very aligned in our conversations with MCEDC to make sure that the strategies come together, especially with the Entrepreneur Hub that group has been talking about. So there's been a lot of conversations that I think are well aligned, and I think they'll come together in these coming months. For sure.
Sounds good. Well, keep us posted on that. But certainly, I think making sure that we can clearly point to, an area there would be very helpful, and would prove that we're actually we're singing off the same music sheet here, and hopefully we can get to some level of harmony. But appreciate it. I'll yield back.
Appreciate it. Excited about the new positions, excited about the new faces in person. And I think, Mr. Weissman, this probably be your first time in person here.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. And you knew how to turn the mic on, so good. Congratulations. Question about the, we're going to dive into the innovation, since we're in the incubators, kind of floating back and forth here, so I'm just going to ask my question now. Really proud to have worked on the Black Business Initiative with Councilman Reamer and supported by Councilman Freitz and all our colleagues. And thank you for the GO committee, doing that already. Shows, I think it's important to show a long, sustained commitment to the work. And as was mentioned, downtown Silver Spring in particular is already a incubator of sorts, a thriving Black-owned businesses. Where the money is going to be put, there's an issue here of in the county executive's office versus the incubator NDA. And could you just explain what the thought process is there? I can start with maybe, did I phrase it right?
Sure. I'm going to have to defer to executive staff on why they funded
Okay,
it.
but that is correct.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. And to me, it would seem like it would make sense to put it in an NDA. But so do you want to explain the thinking there?
You can take that one. Appreciate the question, Councilmember. Part of the reason is a lot of the proposal from the Fed committee for FY22 is focused on SBDC, is focused on a variety of things that have traditionally been funded through the incubator, whereas the FY23 funding is for the Black Chamber of Commerce and the Black Business Council, which doesn't quite fit into the incubator model, was the thinking that budget staff felt it was more appropriate in CEX. I don't think we are particularly wedded to one way or another.
Okay. So functionally, you still expect it to pass through the way it would pass through.
We expect it one way or another to be managed through BAT and managed in an expeditious manner, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
but so this gets at the issue I was sort of raising earlier, we hadn't quite focused in on yet. So, my initial thought was, as Councilmember Jawando said, well, we started this out within the incubator context, so let's keep it there. County executive sent over a recommendation and provided the funding in the business advancement team. The GO committee took our appropriation and annualized it there in the business advancement team. And I think that could be fine. But the one thing I'm not yet clear on, I have been advised, and I think it's correct, that there needs to be one person who is in charge of all of this program work that we're trying to achieve. And I had thought that could be in the incubator program because that would be a natural. I mean, it's just it could also be in the business advancement team. There could be the chief of that set of programming. But I think it's got to be in one or the other, and we need to have one person who gets to make sure that everything is working together and is lined up and is moving forward. So I'll pass it back to you, Councilmember Jawando, but that's an aspect of what you're getting at.
No, you took it down the field a little further for me. But yeah, so if you could speak to that, I mean, I think I don't personally care. I want the money there. I do think that management piece is important, though.
Sure. And I think that's correct. We do need to have somebody specifically laser focused on this. Part of what we run into is that the business advance team and the incubator NDA are kind of, hand in glove, right? In terms of Ms. Semple, Mr. Ciceronis, and really our entire BAT team works hand in hand. And so we don't necessarily act as them being two separate entities in that regard. But I think it's simple enough for us to have a conversation and make sure that one of these positions, whether through the incubator NDA or in BAT, is the sole person responsible for these contracts and for this program moving forward.
Great. Appreciate that. So you'll keep us in
Absolutely.
the loop on that. Agree with the hiring considerations. I think you guys are on track there, and I know you're approaching that appropriately. The other thing I just wanted to say, I noticed, for example, in the graduations, there hadn't been any graduations, I think, at, was it Rockville yet this year? Are there any coming?
We're working on them, yes.
Okay.
We're nudging.
Nudging. All right. One of the things I think we should do when we have those is make a big deal. You know, I want to know, I want all of us to know, I think my colleagues would want to know, not only to urge, do more, it helps with the nudging, but it also helps with the recruitment, I think, and retention and for other people. So, and as we're trying to relaunch and rebrand and reimagine and all the re's of this incubator program, I think celebrating and lifting up who's come out and what they're doing and making a big deal of it. And I think that should be kind of budgeted in, like we should, you know, do something with it. It should have a line item, something associated with it, not just, and I think that's important for these types of programs. And it also gets the word out to other people. So maybe you have some of that in mind. But.
No, I first want to give credit to Ms. Semple. We had 3 graduates recently from Germantown and was able to pull together some press and gain some attention and generate a conversation between the two of us about how we can make a bigger deal about this, because you're 100% right. Like, this is exciting things that happen, and it generates attention, it generates excitement, and I think it probably makes other incubator residents know that when they're ready to leave and graduate, they're not doing this alone, and that there's excitement that goes with it.
Yeah, and a support network. And I find in Montgomery County, there's so many things happening in the business, but we just undersell it or don't know about it, or people are just doing it. And I think a big part of creating that change in the environment is telling the story. So good. I appreciate it. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thanks. I'll start on that point. I think it's a really important point. We have a lot of challenges, and we have to address those challenges. And part of this conversation is, acknowledging the challenges and being willing to change, and that's important. And we're doing that in Silver Spring, and I appreciate that sincerely. There's a lot of good things that are happening, and we have to sell the successes too. And I think we don't do that enough. And it is one of the challenges of being a victim of our own success that, we do expect things to go well, and so we tend not to talk about it. And we allow the only things to be talked about are the things that aren't going well. And yeah, we shouldn't be afraid of talking about things that aren't going well, but we shouldn't only talk about the things that aren't going well. And so we do have to sell this. And I think it's much less about the incubator. That's important. But I'm not concerned about the residents of the incubator seeing the benefit of a celebration to motivate them. I'm hoping that they're motivated to make money, and they're motivated to create jobs, and they're motivated to sell their awesome products or their services that they, have, provided and created. That's their role. Our role is, using them as the example and selling the investment that we've made in them and what that investment is going to mean for the economy, for the community, for the revenues that they're going to generate and the jobs that they're going to create. And to me, the audience is the region, the audience is the country, the audience is the world. And we need to do a better job of that because, we all know in economic development, perception is reality. And, it's our job and Economic Development Corporation's job and all of our partners' jobs to work together to fix the reality when it needs fixing, and to sell the perception that things are pretty good here and they could be even better, and we want more and more people to be part of it.
May I add a comment?
Please.
So I completely agree. Another position of these 3 positions, a second skill set that we are particularly interested in is marketing and PR. Not only for our program, but also to teach our companies how to do, right? Set up programming within the facilities for companies to come and learn how to do it, particularly in today's digital world. You really got to know how to work your Googles and your Facebooks and all that, but also to help us, market our own programs. So I'm really looking for a skill set there, particularly to help us tell the story and help our companies tell their stories as well.
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think that will be really helpful. And certainly, we could use, outward, and we could use it inward as well to do a better job of selling what we have going here. Because there are a lot of things to like for a lot of companies. So the other thing that I just wanted to note as part of the previous conversation, to an extent, I am agnostic about how the structure of the funding occurs in the NDA versus the business advancement team. However, I am not necessarily agnostic because I think it matters how you envision the role. And so if the role is the basic description that I read in the packet and what was sent over to us previously, that this is about the incubator, then it should be in the incubator NDA. If the focus is on the incubator as part of a broader strategy, in Black-owned businesses and in other aspects, then it should be in the business advancement team. I'm agnostic in terms of what you foresee this job doing, but I think you have to choose what the focus is and what the job is, and then you have to put it in the place that is most appropriate based on that decision. So, I'm agnostic, and I think you all should figure out and let us know what you're thinking, but then ultimately you've got to pick the right place in the budget based on what the actual job is. If it's an NDA position that's doing non-NDA stuff, then we should move it, because we just had a conversation in the Office of Agriculture earlier of what happens over time when you move things into other parts of the budget to try to make it work. It creates, problems down the line, particularly since you all are going to change in your positions. Several of us may change in our positions, and 12 years happens fast in county government. We do slow days and fast weeks and even faster years. So please.
Yeah, I'd like to address that issue, if I may. So thank you, Mr. Friedson, for bringing this up again. So I'd actually like to remind everyone that the Incubator NDA, the title of the NDA is actually the Incubator and Economic Development Partnership NDA. That is why, as Jean started out the conversation, we have, the incubator piece of it, but we also have contracts with our economic development, with many economic development partners that are within this NDA. So I think we are open to a shift in the budget to shift this the fiscal year 23 funds for the Black-owned business resolutions, and we could shift that into the Incubator Economic Development Partnership NDA, where it would reside with our other contracts with SBDC, with LADC, with BHI, and the nonprofit incubator, and we could have those contracts, all those economic development partnership contracts, in one place, along with the incubators in that one NDA, which covers both of those work focuses, if you will. The NDA was originally set up as a catch-all when the Department of Economic Development closed down. That's why you have both incubators in there and these economic development partnership contracts. But we are open to shifting out of CEX into the NDA.
So it's
if that would
almost
help
like it's
better
economic
align.
development initiatives, in a way. Okay.
We are open.
Maybe Mr. Smith has some thoughts.
Well, two things. As we'll get into the economic development partnership shortly, certainly the council has the appropriation authority here. So if the executive staff is amenable to doing that during the council's review of both the county office of the county executive and the incubators to NDA, the council can just do that and have the appropriation go to the incubators NDA if that's the council's wish. It certainly helps that the executive staff are amenable to that, but that's something for us to consider when we get to full council for these reviews.
Could I suggest the packet note the discussion that we just discussed it at full council, make a final decision at full council? The full council has been involved in this initiative, and it was already approved by another committee. So, from a process standpoint, I'm a little uncomfortable of us.
We've had a good discussion. We kind of
Yeah, exactly. And then just bring it up as a discussion point at full council and see. And I think it might be relevant to the next conversation that we're having. One of the awkward things here, I'll be honest, is when the Economic Development Corporation was established in the prior term of the prior county executive and the prior council, there was this question of what's going to remain under the province of the county executive. And some of the challenges that we're figuring out are we've learned some things since then that we didn't know when that was being decided. And we also have the added dynamic of, and I've talked about this earlier, the business advancement team has evolved, to say, to kind of put it charitably, from what was originally envisioned. This is kind of the third iteration, from my count, of what this group is going to do. And so that has been a bit of a moving target. We had talked in government operations and fiscal policy. I had requested, and the committee had agreed, as did executive staff, to come back and discuss the business advancement team and what this new strategy is going to be, and the hope that we're going to stick with it for a little while and actually see if it works. But I do think that is part of the dynamic here, is that this has changed a bit. So that would be my suggestion. Again, I'm agnostic to it. I think if the goal here is to have a position that does more than just the incubator, then I think it ought to be in the business advancement team. If the goal here is to have the incubator NDA cover everything and that be the catch-all, then I think that's fine. But I think that is kind of a broad council question of where the bodies are buried, so to speak, in the budget.
And again, I want to note, I think this does go back to my original instinct. This is where LEDC is. This is where BHI is. This is where the Wheaton Technical Assistance Program is. So it's programs. And I think there's a very strong rationale for having this program here. It's not, as you've said, Mr. Weissman, it's pretty, it's in a sense inseparable from the business advancement team also. But it would be, I certainly think it's very naturally reviewed as part of this discussion at the county council. So I would like to recommend that it be done here. Okay. Would you like to comment?
No, I agree. I think because you have two committees that acted differently, we just need to figure it out at full council. But I think I'm hearing amenability, from you all. Okay, so yeah, I think that makes sense as well.
Very good. What I'll do is I'll work with executive staff, and we'll make sure that those two items are near each other on the day at council review, so that the council reviews them together and not separately.
Great. And we'll, again, express appreciation to Geo for the recommendation to annual IC appropriation. Yeah.
So my understanding is the 3 positions are being lapsed for 3 months to give you time to recruit. Is that correct?
Not exactly. Go ahead.
Correctly. Okay.
Ms. Hyatt from OMB, welcome.
Hi, good morning. Good morning.
You don't have to hold it.
I don't have to. Okay, thank you. So this is my first time. So pardon me, my technical deficiency.
Glad you're here.
So thank you so much. So the 3 months lapse is traditionally just a standard budget practice, and that concept is to allow for the department's time to recruit for those positions. So that's just a systemic budget tactic that's used.
Okay, so there's a little bit of a disagreement up here, and I just want to understand what it is. So, the budget department is saying we lapsed 3 months. You're saying we want to recruit this yesterday. What's the reality here, and what's reasonable?
The reality is that we will be recruiting as soon as we can, and it will take us it takes 3 months to get through the hiring process. But we will be ready to go as soon as possible.
Got it. Okay, so it's being lapsed 3 months, but you're moving forward as soon as you can. You just realistically think that is what's going to happen.
Take that anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
But now, that would be 3 months starting July 1, so that would be October 1, right? July, August. Are you allowed to begin recruiting before July 1? Because this is FY20. Isn't there a current year?
June 1, because we're going to have a budget. We're required to have a budget by June 1st.
So let me.
There is funding already in the NDA for the current fiscal year.
That's for the contract with the current contractee that expires June 30th. As the new guy here, let me confirm with the people who have been around a bit longer to get you a better answer on that. And we'll get
but remember, if you're going to do that, then you shouldn't be lapsing the position,
Absolutely.
And then we're going to have to put that on the reconciliation list. Yeah. It's assumed a lapse of 3 months. right now. So if
What
we
is the
don't,
amount requested, a amount that is 3/4 of what you actually want
yeah,
to
on
get?
page 4 of the packet, it talks about the 3 FTs. And it discusses specifically the fact that they're lapsed for 3 months. That's why I asked the question, because I thought it was important as we talked about this happening that we be realistic with what the expectations are and what we're budgeting. And the actual expenditures in FY23 are dependent on when you actually hire. The expenses in FY24 are going to be higher because it's a 9-month position budgeted for this fiscal year, and it's going to be a 12-month position. I mean, assuming we have 3 incumbents in their positions, which we all hope, anything short of that would be failure on all of our parts. So assuming that we are successful in our collaboration and coordination here and in this strategy, then those would be 12-month positions. So they would increase accordingly.
That is true. Just again, as a new hire, I suspect even though the hiring procedures are happening, it took me more than 3 months to come on board, to be honest. And right now, from what I can see from the historical trends, if in fact those incumbents are hired prior to, that 3 months target being expended, pretty much it looks like just from the spending trend that the incubator could support still those expenditures. And I also just want to state that you all probably, I don't know what month, but there was a supplemental that occurred for fiscal year, for this current fiscal year.
But was the supplemental for the FTE?
No, primarily the lion's share was for support of the Silver Spring Innovation Center, and part of that would be...
It's the contracts. So here we're talking about the FTE, the personnel, which is different.
Understood. And I guess I'm also speaking from an aggregate perspective.
There's money in the NDA, I think is what I think you're saying.
You're saying you could absorb it if you went faster.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
And Councilmember, I just want to say, and again, I recognize I'm the new guy here, I feel very confident that if we were incredibly lucky and we put out and got a good hire right away, and it was before that 3-month lapse period, we would make sure to make it work to get somebody in as soon as possible. This is a priority.
I agree. The way we were talking about, I just wanted to make sure we were being
not done. You made
honest about what was budgeted and how things were expected.
Well, let's finish this because
Yeah.
what you're saying is important, and what we are learning is that there's enough money in the NDA potentially not to have to lapse it. That's what I believe I'm hearing, and so we'd like for council staff to please follow up with OMB and Mr. Weissman, and let's find that out. And then if we don't have to put it on the reconciliation list, or if we put it on and say it's a designated source of funding that is already in existence, it's not adding to the, it's not funding that we have to find somewhere, then it would be quite easy, and then you could proceed to hire at the fastest speed you could move.
We'll make sure to get an answer and get back to you.
I just want to make sure. The more specific question is, if this is approved, if in some small sense of a miracle, as was just described, there's the ability to bring one or all of these 3 positions on board earlier, do you believe you have the budget authority to do that? You're suggesting that if the NDA has the money to do that, that you could do that you wouldn't have to lapse. The question is, if somebody is available on August the 1st instead of October the 1st, could they start? Like, do you believe that we've given you, and if not, is there budget language that we could include that says we're budgeting for basically 9 months, but that the council is providing authority, if there's available funds to do it sooner? I mean, we include budget language in the budget resolution, and it doesn't seem to me that that would be impossible to do.
So with respect to it being impossible, I agree that it shouldn't be impossible. Just for clarity, what I'm stating is that for this current fiscal year, from an aggregate perspective, there does appear to be sufficient funding to support those positions for this current fiscal year. If not, if by some chance that, through the HR procedures, times are lagged and they don't come, in time, then for the fiscal year 23, yes, you're correct that they have not been budgeted for an entire fiscal year for fiscal year 23.
And Councilmember Friedson, just to clarify, because I have Ms. Beck behind me nodding vigorously, I believe we're good there, but we will confirm with OMB and let you know if there is any language that will be helpful in that.
Yeah, that's what I would think too. I just wanted to clarify that. And if not, I think Mr. Smith's going to be writing the budget language, so we can just have executive staff and
Absolutely.
No
Mr.
one's
Smith
saying we're
work
going
on
to be able
that.
to hire these positions in FY22. It's that we don't need to lapse because there's funding in the.
Right.
We just need to designate that FY23, that those funds will be covered from, I guess, fund balance in the NDA or something.
I don't mean to be a stickler here, but the lapse is related to the budgeted amount. So if you're not going to lapse,
Yes.
then you have to add to the budget.
Correct.
And the question here is whether or not you'd have to add to the budget, and if you could just go ahead and hire as soon as you can, and you have money in the NDA to be able to do that is the point. And as long as you have the budget authority, then all is copacetic.
Yes.
So I think, I'm
I think we're all
responsible
there.
for this. I think we've overcomplicated what isn't that complicated, but I'm glad we fleshed it out.
Yes.
All right. Good conversation.
My son.
All right. Sounded like it. Okay.
I would just point out that young William agrees that we've overcomplicated, and he's ready to move on.
All right. Nice job, Ms. Hyatt. Appreciate your participation. Okay, where are we here? I think we've got a lot of recommendations, and I don't see any differences that I would raise other than the ones we've discussed. And
Sure, I've taken notes. We'll follow up with the executive staff. So I just want to note what we've gone through right now as a committee is for the incubators, operations, staffing. So if those looking on table 2, that covers anything under the incubators, including their operation expenses. As noted in the packet and by executive staff, Silver Springs expenditures are increasing significantly this year as the county takes over management, as well as the staffing. And so what council staff will write and all of that will recommend the committee's recommendation for this.
nonprofit village, we need to get
We're going to
that.
get to, yep. Just about to get there. Including adding that the county executive has recommended increasing the expenditures for this from the March 15th budget to cover personnel costs that weren't covered in the original. And so that will go before the council, and as already requested, we'll also note the desire to see the black business initiatives that are in the county office of the county executive also be considered for this NDA after conferring with executive staff right before we do that. So that takes care of incubators. Now we go on to the economic development partnerships, which are our contracts. I'll go through those one at a time. They shouldn't take too long, hopefully, but I will do them separately just for the sake of transparency and discussion. The first one is the Wheaton Technical Assistance Program, which was administered by the Latino Economic Development Center. It met the county code's requirement to provide technical assistance in Wheaton during the redevelopment project. This is mostly a crosswalk going forward. As noted, the Wheaton redevelopment program is finished, and so the technical assistance is no longer required in Wheaton. So the $208,000 that is in the incubator NDA that was for that purpose will just be absorb part of Latino or the LADC's contract to provide business assistance more globally to the county businesses. This program also includes $125,000 under business assistance, generally for LADC. So LADC's contract under the incubator NDA will be $333,000 to provide more general business assistance. As executive staff notes, they'll provide similar services as previously, including technical assistance, distribution of microloans, and foreclosure prevention workshops. But again, it will not just be targeted at Wheaton. This will be for all businesses. So I will pause there for that $333,000 as an incubator NDA for LADC.
Great. Any comments here? Yeah.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the funds, because the Wheaton project is completed and there was a set aside specifically, I think it was the TAP program in Wheaton that Councilman Navarro spearheaded many years ago. We're going to keep the money in because we understand there's a lot of need and there are other projects in other places in the county, but we're going to combine the general with this targeted and just make it all general and say businesses throughout the county that are impacted can access these funds. Is that's correct?
Yes, and LADC I know is working a variety of issues, including businesses impacted by Purple Line and others. So it would be more broad than specifically targeted towards the TAP.
Yep. Okay. And so businesses impacted by the Purple Line, which LADC has been working on, would be able to access these funds specifically.
Yeah, and we'd have to work out with LADC in particular. I know Ms. Costello was meeting with them on Friday, discussing some of what they're working on.
Yeah, and I raise it obviously because there's a lot of efforts occurring there have been requests that have come in, but it's your belief and council staff's belief that this provides the flexibility to do what we're talking about here, to make sure that we're
I
helping
think we'll have the
businesses impacted
flexibility.
by the purple line.
Absolutely.
And also recognize
We
that
can
there
do
are
that.
other projects throughout the county where there's business assistance that's needed. Is that correct?
Mostly, I think I would just clarify by saying the 330,000 in this will be implemented per the executive's notes here in terms of their contract. So certainly, if the council was more interested in purple line assistance, specifically targeting that, we would either need to confirm that before we get to the full council review, or just acknowledge that that will be worked in the general contract with LADC, and it will be implemented per the contract with LADC, which may or may not include specific.
Yeah, I mean, I'd personally say I think we should include in the budget language that purple line be included, but provide some level of flexibility to be able to work with LADC to accomplish it and it not be exclusive to the purple line, because there was a general fund here. We don't want to take away. We're trying to redirect and provide some level of flexibility. So at least my view would be including in the budget language that it's expected that the purple line be one of the focus areas, but not say exactly what percentage of that funding would be, because it could be more or less than what was occurring in Wheaton. We just don't know.
Absolutely. And we'd be very open to guidance from the council on that, or
And then
LADC more
and then the second piece is I think it'd be helpful to come back with the contract. I mean, I'm not saying you can't do a contract until you come back to us and we approve the contract, because I think that is going too far in terms of our appropriation authority. But I do think it would be helpful for us to know. So once the contract is consummated, to just share that with the council, since this is of significant interest to the council as a whole and to individual council members. So I just would request that it be shared once it's signed. That'd be my view.
Okay, so we have a big conversation ahead of us about business district grants, main streets, and all of that. And unless I'm mistaken, I think that what we really want to do is bring all that together. And this funding, Wheaton needs to continue to have this kind of technical assistance. It's like phenomenal. It's doing great work. And so does Long Branch and Silver Spring. So we want to see this growing, but I think it's time to kind of reimagine it also. And the executive has put a proposal in his budget for business district grants, and I think that's sort of wide open in its formulation. Many of us have been talking about creating Main Street programs. We've received a letter from MHP about they would like to continue their work in Long Branch specifically, and that should be, I think, through a Main Street model. So, generally, we need to come back in our next conversation, I think, when we get to that piece about how all that comes together. I don't want to get too far out on a limb with this specific piece of it. I'm a little less clear, but I think that this specific piece of it could be evolved into that program as well. And then we have kind of a unified strategy of supporting small business through direct programming in business districts all across the county. So, major shout out for Councilmember Navarro for leading the initiative to get this funding in and on the ground in Wheaton many years ago. And, it's just a continuing vital program, and we want to see it continue. So, so I guess that was sort of my general comment here is we've got a big topic ahead of us, and we can flag this for now and then try to bring everything together. Was that? Yeah.
Yeah. Was this also an attempt to address the purple line letter?
Yes.
Right.
It's part of that too.
Loop all that in. I think.
I mean, my view is we're combining this into a fund and providing flexibility. And if we include budget language that specifically says we expect the purple line corridor to be a focus, that, and then they come back to us and explain how they do it without us holding up funding.
I think that works.
At least that, from my perspective, I think that seems to signal what our interest is here without, prejudicing the outcome, so to speak, in terms of how exactly it gets implemented.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And I agree with Councilman Reamer. I mean, this has been a very important program. So to expand we want to make sure it's touching as much as possible. And that purple line corridor is key. So that works for me.
So we'll go with that for now, but we're going to be back at this in a different context, and let's make sure we refer back to this. And I think what we can ultimately do is pull everything together into one coherent program around business district development grants or something like that. Okay. Gene, is that clear for you now?
It is. I would note that my understanding most of this contract is not assistance directly to businesses. It's simply to provide funding to LADC to then do tech. So I just want to be clear that this is not
what I'm talking about too. I mean, I'm talking about things that are actually, well, that gets into it. I don't exactly know what the executive's proposal is for the next budget, but yes.
Let me just clarify that, because my understanding was there's 208,000 that is in technical assistance funds, and then there's approximately 125,000 that are going to LADC in the form of a contract to provide the technical assistance services. Did I misunderstand that?
The technical assistance was all a service provision. The direct funding assistance to businesses was done through the Economic Development Fund for the Wheaton program.
Got it.
So the $208,000 was a service delivery that LADC provided to those businesses on behalf of the county to meet the county code during the Wheaton redevelopment program, but it was not direct assistance or grants to those businesses. That was funded elsewhere.
Right, through the EDF. I apologize. Now that you say that, I am picturing where it is located in the EDF. So I apologize, and I did misunderstand that as we were talking about this. So we're not appropriating this to LADC. We're appropriating this for these purposes, and you are implementing a contract with LADC. If all of the funding is not required for certain services, you have flexibility. Is that accurate? Or are we naming, because does this come back as a Section G amendment as a non-competitive contract once the contract is signed? So the funding is available. We're not saying this money goes directly, or are we appropriating it directly to LADC? I guess that's the question.
It will be appropriated to the Incubator NDA, but it will be implemented through the Section G amendment as a non-competitive contract with LADC with the amount and the purpose listed. So in terms of what the committee has requested for the purple line, we want to make sure that the Section G reflects the purple line as part of the corridor that we want this funding implemented in. But there is no specific line item appropriation to LADC in this program.
And do we think that the $330,000 is the right amount for this contract for these services?
Yeah, I don't think we have entire clarity on that, council member.
I'm just pointing out, like, if you think that you need $250,000 for this particular contract, it would then provide additional resources here in the same scope of service to do another contract, for instance. Is that accurate?
Yes,
So
I
there
believe
could be
that's-
two Section G amendments, for instance, one for 250 and one for 80,000.
I believe that's correct.
Is that accurate? Because we're not presupposing that this is all going to go for this exact service in this exact place. You're going to work out a contract, and you're going to have $330,000 to do that, and you may decide that there are other opportunities to supplement this with another contract, for instance.
Yeah.
Sure. What I would suggest is that I'll work with executive staff again, and when this comes to full council, we should account for how all of the money in the NDA is being intended, whether specifically for LADC or other contracts. But as we've done these programs previously, what the council is reviewing is the executive's recommendation for the next fiscal year, and the executive's recommendation, at least as represented in this packet, is $333,000 for LADC to implement specific services. And so what I would say is I don't think the council should review this and just assume there's a bucket of money that will be implemented. However, later, the council should review which contracts they expect to see in Section G when it approves the budget for this appropriation, whether $133,000 or less for LADC.
And we can work with Mr. Smith to make sure that there's full clarity before this gets to full council.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Boy, we've still got some big items ahead of us here.
I'll be quick then.
Okay.
This, Incubator NDA also includes $30,000 for the Maryland Small Business Development Center. It's the same as what recommended in 22 to provide business technical assistance. As noted in the packet, there's no recommended changes for 23. And so that's another contract that we will see on Section G for this purposes. Not Section, yeah. That's in this NDA. So I'll pause there just real quick. If there's no concerns, it'll be recommended as approved, recommended for approval as the executive has recommended.
SBDC? Or where are you? Sorry?
I'm sorry, I'm on page 6 of my packet at the top. So as noted, there's $125,000 that was already for LEDC. We've already spoken about that. There's
Right.
a $30,000 contract the county has been implementing with the Maryland Small Business Development Center for many
Right.
years. That's also in this NDA. I'm noting it for clarity and also that they'll continue to provide the services as previously.
And there's a new contract for them in the Black Business strategy
Correct, but that is not in this NDA.
at this time. At this time. But that's another good explanation of why it makes sense to bring it back here. We've got a contract here. Okay.
As long as okay, I don't see any disagreement. So the next one is nonprofit village. So the executive's recommendation is $185,000 for this contract in fiscal 23. As noted in the packet, it's a decrease of $75,000 from 22's approved budget, which did include the $75,000 as a one-time expenditure to cover rent losses during the pandemic. And so the fiscal 23 recommendation, at least in terms of services, is the same level of service for this contract. And again, as noted, it'll continue the same services as was in fiscal 22 through a contract.
Okay. So we have a request from Nonprofit Village, right?
I did not see a request from Nonprofit Village.
I think we do. Okay. Apologize. I have to pull it up then. I was expecting it to be in the packet. Andrew, do you happen to have that handy? Or Will?
I know the request. I'm just trying to find the documentation for it.
I've got the letter. All right. And this was a letter to the county executive in January. So does that ring a bell, Mr. Weissman? Maybe not.
It doesn't. I'm searching through my email now, but we met with Nonprofit Village when discussing the Black Business proposal for the FY23 budget, and nothing came up.
And that
It might have been for the portion that they were looking for FY22, but in their final proposal to us that they did together with the Black Business Council and the Black Chamber, the requested funds were for FY22, not for FY23.
Okay, well, I think this was a base budget increase request. So the base budget is 185, right, Gene, or it was?
Correct.
Or it is. Okay. And we did as your packet explains, we did a one-time FY22 grant for rental assistance, essentially, or their loss of rental income from nonprofits, allowing them to forbear rent or accept that their tenants couldn't pay rent. We have a separate increase for FY22, enabling them to expand their support for nonprofits that serve underrepresented communities that are run by or founded by executives from underrepresented communities. And they are separately seeking a base budget increase of $100,000 to go from 185 to 285. So you may not have that, but that was in a letter that it went to the exec and the council. We have it somewhere, so we'll forward it on to you. Personally, I'm very enthusiastic about the Nonprofit Village. I'm quite biased because I once founded a nonprofit and I was incubated, and I don't think I'd be sitting here today if I hadn't had access to incubator type support as a nonprofit founders. So, I think it's just a vital part of our county's economy. The nonprofit sector is huge here, as we all know. That's part of the Washington region's strengths, and we ought to be as supportive as we can. So, colleagues.
Yeah, the request is an additional $100,000 for FY23 based on the need. They note in the letter that only 36% of their funds come from the county, that they serve the purpose of incubating nonprofits, which are employers in the county, important employers in the county. So it sounds like Chair wants to add this to the reconciliation list. I might suggest that we maybe do 2 tranches of $50,000 each in case we can't do it. If in case we can't do all of it, so it's not an all or nothing, and we'll see what we can fund in reconciliation, if that's okay with Councilmember Joanna.
Yes, I'd have been fine with the whole thing, but I think 50 and 50 is fine to add.
Okay, great. So we'll do that.
I just want to make sure if we can't do all, we do some. So I think that helps us. Obviously, we're going to try to get all 100,000, but in the event that we can't, I don't want to be at zero. So I think this gives us a chance to be a little bit more flexible. So thanks.
All right.
Very good. Council staff will note that, and per the council president's memo about the approach, that will be a base budget add, since the request is a base budget add as opposed to a one-time add.
Yeah, it should be.
Yep. Nope. Just noting that for the record. And then the last contract that is in this NDA, and I'll have one other item after this one, though, just to quickly note, is the BHI contract, Biohealth Innovation. It's $200,000, the same as fiscal 22. Executive staff note that in 22, BHI supported, the contract supported related representing the county for the Global Pandemic Center, C-suite consulting services for emerging biotech companies, and assistance identifying expansion of a major research university medical center in the county. The fiscal 23 recommendations the same as the 22, with a contract to be determined later. They did not provide any deliverables as far as expectation for BHI in fiscal 23.
Is the FY22 contract finished? I was under the impression it has not been finished.
It has not been finished. We actually have been going back and forth. Ms. Miller sent us a proposal on, I think, Friday afternoon or Friday evening. So we're working with them on that now.
Okay. Well, we should definitely get that finished ASAP. Is this contract, does it carry through to FY23?
So their proposal that they sent does carry through to FY23. We have to look through it. There are some things I think that are very worthwhile and some that frankly don't quite make the cut. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Could you send that to us too?
Absolutely.
I would very much appreciate
absolutely
having a chance to take a look at that. Okay, Andrew.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. It feels like we got a little bit of deja vu all over again with this contract. And I think at a certain point, we're going to have to just get on the same page here. And it just seems like there are different viewpoints, and I understand the prerogative of the executive branch to make sure that contracts fulfill county priorities. But we are talking about the FY23 budget and approving funding for a contract that hasn't been approved for FY22. And that's not good. So I'm just, it's the second year in a row, I think, that we've had a similar circumstance here. And if we don't approve contracts for fiscal years until we start taking up the next fiscal year, then it's an awfully tough way to budget, both for our partners and for county government. So we got to do better than that. And if the answer is we're just not going to move forward with contracts, then that's should be shared with the council and the reasons why, and we should discuss it. But I don't want to get into May of fiscal years and still be discussing whether or not funding for contracts have merit and whether or not we're going to move forward with them. It's just not a good way to treat partners, and it's not a good way to deal with these budgets.
Absolutely agree. This seems to be one of the things that fell through with Ms. Miller's position changing over and my own position changing over. And so we started these conversations again a couple months ago to try to get on top of it. But you're 100% right. And that's our focus right now.
Okay. And then what happens? they have a contract before you that is for the rest of fiscal year 22 plus fiscal year 23, and we're appropriating 23, but we haven't yet spent any of 22. So I'm just...
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was
Yeah.
going to say the executives would need to execute a contract and encumber the 22 funds in order for the 22 funds to be available for this organization before the close of fiscal year, within 30 days, I should say, of the close of fiscal year. Should they not be encumbered, they would go back into the general fund wash if the contract hasn't been executed and encumbered.
No, I understand if you don't execute a contract between now and, in July 1st, but if you do execute a contract in the next, say, month, you only have 1 month of it, and then the question is, the contract's been consummated, but
I believe, and Mr. Smith or Ms. Semple will correct me if I'm wrong, the funds get encumbered, and their contracts have historically been based on performance. So as they finish the task, they're paid out that way.
yeah, it just begs the question. It begs the question. It's an odd dynamic here. You're requesting the same funds for this year as last year. This committee certainly has been very supportive of these efforts with biohealth, innovations in particular, and biohealth, as a strategy more broadly. But you're asking for funds for appropriation, the same as this past year, when, at least theoretically, if it's based on performance and they have to be encumbered, at best, you're going to be looking at 1/12 of the amount of funds. And so it would be, it is a bit of an odd dynamic here.
It is, but if we get the contract executed, we get the funds encumbered and issue a purchase order, then that purchase order is good for, I think, up to 3 years to finish performing out the tasks, and we can pay on that purchase order.
So what you're saying is you're expecting if you ratify a 22 contract in the next 2 months, that then there would be 3 years to pay out, but with what budget authority?
Well, the funds are already encumbered. So you could in theory spend all of your contract money for 22 and 23 during 23. Because we'll have the budget authority from 22 that's encumbered and on a purchase order. So it's not going to disappear.
So it's based on performance, but the purchase order comes before the performance happens?
The purchase order is created after we sign the contract, we create a purchase order. And then as the contractor performs tasks under that purchase order, they send us an invoice, we apply it against the purchase order, and that balance of that purchase order goes down. But the funds had already been encumbered and assigned to the purchase order, so the money's not going to go away.
So you maintain the fiscal year 22, so they don't go back into the. Normally they would go.
Normally they would, but you can hold over if need be. If you have a purchase order, you can.
Because it's an outstanding invoice, basically. Right. It's an accounts receivable, effectively.
Right. Well, right, and I think maybe Felicia, I don't want to put you on the spot. But I think it doesn't, if you don't, you have to go in, it doesn't automatically go back into the wash. But Jean's right, generally, if budgets aren't used or purchase orders aren't used, they can be liquidated. But you do have the ability to hold over a purchase order if you've still got invoices coming in, people are still doing work, and it's encumbered.
I would just make a recommendation just to allow me to go. I'm not, I don't know if there's anyone in here from procurement, but I would rather defer to the procurement policies just to understand better how that's treated. Because generally, just from a generally accepted accounting principle and GASB and all of that, definitely once the service has been incurred for that particular year, funds should be utilized from that particular fiscal year. But I do see OMB leadership here, so she may be able to advise, but I feel more comfortable talking procurement.
It depends on the structure of the contract, but there are ways that the money can be retained. They are reviewed, and if it's inappropriate, then they would be liquidated. But that is a formal process that we go through every year. But particularly if things are being approved late in the fiscal year, there's an understanding and an acknowledgement that the costs will flow into the next fiscal year. That happens all the time.
Okay. Well, I think we should appropriate the funding. I don't want to hold up another year's contract, but this is a mess that needs to be cleaned up. And the practice of, 11 months into a fiscal year, ratifying a contract that was supposed to be for the entire fiscal year is just not a good practice. We all recognize that. I'm not here to criticize. I'm here to recognize that we need to fix it. And then I think it would be helpful to report back on how this is all being worked out. So,
Absolutely.
because there are some big questions here, and I understand, that there's a difference between going back into the, general fund, basically into reserves, to start the new fiscal year as part of the closeout for a department not spending funds versus a contract with an outside entity, and you have to fulfill your obligations to the entity with the full faith and credit of the county. I mean, I understand that, but this process has not worked as well as any of us would like, and certainly is not something that I think that should be common practice. So once this gets sorted out, hopefully sooner rather than later, then letting us know how it's being sorted out, and then how we're going to make sure that we don't get to May of next year and not have a contract like we have this year, and frankly like we had the previous year, and like we've done in the past, because this has been a bit of an ongoing issue, especially with this particular contract. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's been for a executive who says he cares about the life sciences sector, the execution on this program has been just ineffective, and it's been a problem. And okay, thank you, Councilmember Friedson. Okay, Gene?
The only outstanding item is the committee did receive on Friday afternoon a memo from Mr. Hucker requesting consideration for LEDC and MHP. We talked about that previously, but since it wasn't in the packet, but I did receive that late, as well as the committee received that late on Friday. I wanted just to note that for the record that request was put before the committee for consideration of funding issues related to the Purple Line corridor.
Okay.
So, if there's no other consideration, then council staff has his marching orders to work with executive staff and the committee on future things. But
Yeah.
so
Okay. Yeah. We addressed it before.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I concur with 200,000, just so you know. For BHI, just going back.
thank you.
Okay.
And then we are done with this.
All
one.
right. Thank you. We have we're all in favor of those things we've been in favor of all along. Okay. Thank you. Reaffirming. Okay. Welcome, Naeem. Naeem, did you want to proceed with, I understood there was some request to move things around a little bit.
Yes, correct. If HOC, I think will take a shorter amount of time, so we can cover them first.
HOC.
And I think the discussion with HOC will tee off the discussion with DHC afterwards. So
And will we do HOC just operating and
just
not
operating.
capital?
Yes. Correct, just operating.
All right. Welcome to our HOC team. Hope you've enjoyed the conversation this morning. All right. Okay, so in other words, we're going to move to item 4. And we're joined by Irene Brown, Acting Executive Director at HOC, doing a phenomenal job there. Zach Marks. All right, Zach, welcome. You're doing awesome work. Well, now I have to tell everyone they're doing awesome work. So, okay, Tim Getzinger, one of my favorites. Terry Fowler. Miss Fowler, welcome back. No, sorry.
One of my favorites.
I mean, I didn't want to say the same thing over and over and over again. But you are appreciated.
Thank you.
In fact, we're going to be talking later about a preservation fund, and you and I had a conversation about that many years ago that has still in my mind. Okay, so Ms. Fowler's not here. Ms. Adebo. All right, thank you. Very good, welcome. And I don't see Ms. Choi. And then we have Anita Ariti, who's not also. Okay, so Mary Beck is here for all of those purposes. Okay, Naeem, great. Thank you. Welcome. Please start.
Okay, thank you. Just cut to it. The executive is recommending $737,000 for the HOC NDA. This is a 10% increase over the FY22 approved level. As I noted on page 2 of the packet, the funding goes to HOC's larger budget and covers a number of program areas, including homelessness prevention, information referral services, service linkages, and crisis intervention programs. HOC's own recommended budget was released on April 6, 2022, and that's currently under review by the commissioners, with work expected to wrap up by this coming June. Beyond that, I did have a note on the Housing Production Fund. I know the committee has received an update on this past December, but staff is here to provide an additional update as well as some more information that can be presented. So with that, I would, if there's no questions, I would turn it over to them for that presentation.
Okay, great. Ms. Brown.
Good morning, council members. Thank you for having us here today. There's really not a whole lot more to say with respect to the budget request, and we appreciate your support for HOC. However, I think it's important for us to acknowledge the support of the council and the county executive, especially in the last 2 years. First, the support of our operating budget. Second, support of our capital budget, special appropriation to help us with preventing evictions, given the trials that we've all endured over the last 2 years. And finally, new and very important to our production of affordable housing is the Housing Production Fund, which the bond issuance closed last year. We've made our first loan and are working toward the second loan. And so, again, not a whole lot to be said with respect to the operating budget. It really just funds services that we provide to our residents. The past 2 years have been particularly challenging, and so it's important to know that we have staff available when our customers call in our resident services division to turn to provide referrals or assistance as the case may be. So, again, thanks for your support. And then I'd like to just acknowledge that we've got 2 members of our commissioners here, Commissioner Roy Priest, the chair, and Commissioner Jackie Simon.
Welcome, Mr. Priest, Ms. Simon. Thanks for your work on the commission. Okay, great. Glad you're here. Appreciate all the partnerships and the work that you do. The Housing Production Fund is off to a fantastic start, and it's been getting the deserved national recognition, and really we're thrilled by that. It's a terrific model, and it helps you get to a scale and to move with certainty and speed. And I think over the long term, we've got to, if we can add in a way of providing more access to land in combination with providing access to affordable financing, I think HOC, the sky's the limit on what you can do, and it's an exciting model here. So. All right, so what do you think? Now's the time to talk about the HPF. Is that Naeem? All right. So we've created the HPF here with your guidance, and it's a $50 million fund that you repay to the county a certain interest rate, and it, as a result, creates a net impact to the county that's quite modest and affordable. I think the question is, could we expand it? If we did, are you able to take advantage of that? Our original goal was to create a $100 million fund, and we were able to create $50 million first year, and we said we'd like to come back and see if we can double that and get to our $100 million fund. So I will ask you now, how do things look? And if we were able to create more resources for you, would you be able to use them effectively?
Sure, thank you. In a short moment, I'll have Zach walk you through a little bit of presentation that we created for you. But the Housing Production Fund, it's really critical as we try to expand housing in the county, in particular affordable housing. And we've already seen the benefits in that it's funded the West Side Shady Grove transaction.
Yeah.
Which will produce 268 units, 30% of which will be restricted. And the plan is to continue to do that over and over again. As we've shared with you, HOC has a pretty robust pipeline, and as we bring transactions to our commission, they're supportive of them, and we expect that over the next several years, this will be an ongoing process whereby we find opportunities with the help from the county and others. We produce the housing, lend to those developments, and once it's repaid over a 3 or 4 or 5 year period, it gets put into another development, and thereby allows us to just continue the growth of affordable housing. I want to say indefinitely, but for a very long time. It is what we're aiming for. We're also focused somewhat on preservation, which that's a separate discussion, but it's all part of ensuring that we're preserving what's on the ground, but we're expanding because there is, as we all know, there's a severe shortfall of affordable housing, especially in the county. And so to the extent we're able to even do deeper affordability than the 50% of the area median income or at MPDU levels, we're poised to look at how we fund those and to use HOC's tools to ensure that we can maximize the production.
Absolutely. And to your point, it's really hard to create new housing that is also affordable at below market rates. You know, that it's just the market can't produce housing that's new construction that is below the cost of building housing that is new construction. Right. But you have a model where you can produce new housing by blending it with market housing and add to the supply of affordable housing over the long term in the county.
Yes, and it's what we've done throughout our history. But the Housing Production Fund is particularly important because during the construction period, that's where, as you know, the most risk is for a new development. And lenders are reluctant, and if they do lend, it's at really high rates.
Right.
At a 5% interest rate to the Housing Production Fund, we're able to be a little bit more purposeful in what we produce, because we know that there's that pot of money that's available to help supplement the construction budget during that period. And so,
what is the construction loan terms typically you would otherwise be?
5%. In today's market, especially with rising interest rates, I'd say would be in the double-digit interest rate.
Double-digit interest
absolutely.
rates. I mean, I'm sort of familiar with this as a layperson. I'm told that you can get a construction loan for your house if you're going to do a renovation project, but it's so expensive. The interest rate would be so high, there's no point. Like, don't even bother. That's sort of an analogous thing. This is a risky period of time that banks don't particularly like to lend money for at a they charge a lot for this type of loan. So we're able to provide you with a low-cost loan. It's always available. You can plan your pipeline around it.
Absolutely.
And then it's self-supporting. When you repay, the money's there for the next project.
Correct.
Cool. And, I think we ought to look at doing something like this for other partners, other housing partners to the county. I mean, actually, it's not limited to HOC, is my understanding. And technically, this is available to other partners, but you have a certain pipeline that you provide, right?
Yes, we do have the pipeline to execute on. We're able to collaborate with other partners on new developments also.
Right.
The key here is HOC control and ownership in the end, because we've got certain financing tools in our toolkit that we're able to apply to the permanent phase of the project. And so there has to continue, and there will remain HOC and county involvement throughout the life cycle of the development. So that helps us.
So I think we're interested to hear your presentation, and we'll do it with an eye towards getting to the next step, which is figuring out the implications of adding the second tranche of $50 million that we had intended to add from the beginning. And everyone, I want to say, Naeem, good packet. Thank you. This is like a really broad and deep issue, and I thought you did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Filling Linda McMillan's shoes is quite a task.
I know. I'm glad no one has asked me to do that. I'll tell you.
Can you all see the presentation on your computers, or?
We see what's on the screen.
Yeah, we just see what's on the screen.
Okay. All right, let's see. Maybe Equin, if you can hear me, maybe you can help a little bit.
Paging Equin.
Yes. No, it's not. Okay, thank you, Equin.
All set? Great, thank you. So just as an overview, the original launch, pretty quick. This was really a very successful collaboration between county government and HOC. The legislation passed in March of 21, and by August of 21, the governing documents were executed. So that was a lot of hard work, both by HOC and county staff, to make sure that the fund is governed in a way that is satisfactory to both us as the users and of course the county as the appropriators. And in August of 21, HOC issued the bonds, the $50 million in bonds that populated the fund, and that first loan was made. Tim worked with the commission to develop the loan documents, so we had to, of course, create the loan documents for the projects. And so that first loan was made in December of 21 to that West Side Shady Grove project, which is there's actually pedestrian access to the Shady Grove Metro Station. So it's just a really attractive location and project right out of the gate. And in fact, it will open in early 23. So the first HPF funded project will actually open its doors in less than a year, which is exciting.
All right.
And then to get that 50 fully expended is the Hillendale Gateway development, which actually consists of 2 buildings, but it's 463 units. And one of the things that we wanted to emphasize, we're going to emphasize throughout the packet, is that the HPF is a single program. As you all know, HSC typically and affordable housing developers are typically layering programs on top of one another. So, when you see that that the HPF requires 30% affordable, that's what that program requires. And then there's, of course, the direction of the commission in terms of mission. And then there are other affordable tools that are out there that help us to access broader affordability, deeper affordability in any given project. So it's just important to note that sometimes people see the single program and they say, they see the 30% and they suggest that it's, to them, not ambitious. And so I think it's important to note that, as we'll show you further into the packet, sort of what happens after that initial layering. In addition, I would also add that the average low-income housing tax credit deal in this county is about 125 units. So when you look at 30% of the units that are on projects of these sizes, you're actually getting similar unit counts, which I think is important also as an apples to apples comparison. So next slide. Thanks. So I apologize for this slide, but it's the best I could explain what was in my head. But effectively, this is designed to show how the first fund is working. So you see the first fund revolution. There's a lasso around West Side Shady Grove, and then in FY23, that's containing the Hillendale Gateway deal. So as we mentioned, the first $50 million is consumed by those 2 deals. And what we wanted to show with this slide is simply that this is the existing pipeline where the commission has made substantial approvals. So it's the very, very, very concrete pipeline. It doesn't at all get into potential deals that could be brought before them if the commission felt it had sufficient resources to execute on those. And even just from this existing pipeline, you can see that there are already gaps where that $50 million is utilized, as Ms. Brown mentioned. The $50 million works in these transactions for 3 to 5 years. It's generally something like 2 years to construct, 1 to 2 years to lease up, and that's where that time period comes from. And during that time, we have other really exciting transactions come to the fore. And not having this tool available simply because of this period of revolution means that we have what we're calling up here kind of a gap. And so one of the ways in which an increase in the fund would help would be to, frankly, fill even the gap on the existing pipeline. Now, you're asking us to, of course, expand and produce more. And so this is really just to make the point that the commission already has a pipeline that's sufficient to exceed that first 50 million. And of course, there are lots of different ways HOC finances its transactions. And so it's not as if it's only relying on the HPF. But just to make the point here that we have the first and second funds already, fund revolutions of that first 50 million already taken up, and you can already see what else could immediately step up to take advantage of it. But what will in fact happen is it's an addition of resources to all the other tools that HOC and and other nonprofit developers like us, we produce transactions in lots of different ways. But just to be able to, to convey to the council that if you make this funding available to us, we're going to use it because that's what you would want. Next slide. And just to give you some of the themes on how that expansion would work, again, just continuing on with the previous point, it can help to both accelerate deals, which would mean producing transactions sooner than they sit currently on the pipeline. They may be ready to go, but for reasons of responsible stewardship, the commission may want to take things more slowly to make sure it pairs with available resources. That makes total sense. But it could also augment the pipeline, meaning the commission may be more inclined to take on, another challenging deal if there are the guarantee of these resources being available. We also have seen an interesting theme of private sector inducement, and what we mean there is that, and West Side Shady Grove was an example of this, where in fact there are private developers who are interested in bringing us transactions that are already site plan approved. And of course, for these private developers, they're typically meeting the inclusionary zoning requirement and no more. But because of the attractiveness of this financing, they're willing to accept HOC ownership, higher affordability, and so it's one of these added benefits that, frankly, at the beginning of the program we didn't necessarily know could be a strength, but that we actually could have deals that are already site plan approved. So this isn't just about HOC taking on new deals in and of itself, but it could be taking existing transactions, bringing them to market, but bringing them to market with more affordability. They're already site plan approved, which eliminates lots of risk and lots of waiting. Obviously, there's the county activation of parking lots and excess land. Councilmember Reamer mentioned the necessity of having land to build critical, and so when these opportunities come from the county or elsewhere, it again allows the commission to more comfortably pursue some of those if it knows it has these additional resources available. And of course, transit-oriented development push, which has been a centerpiece for the county for a long time. West Side Shady Grove is obviously beginning with that theme, and we know that there's a strong desire from the council to see high-rise affordable development at WMATA stations, and so this is exactly the kind of fund you would want to produce mixed income, high-rise, high-density developments at metro stations, for instance. And so the key benefits really of the second HPF issuance would be filling those timing gaps, acting while rates are still low, and when we typed that, it wasn't nearly as terrifying as it is right now. So act now, and it deploys quickly. In that, again, going back to that first slide, county staff and HOC have already done the hard work of getting those governing documents in place, and so you're not creating another affordable housing program from scratch. Those governing documents are in place. As soon as you approve it, it's really about bond issuance and getting into deals and getting rolling, and so we know that time's of the essence. Really quickly, and just as sort of an aside, but one of the things we thought was interesting was obviously the Council of Governments goal is very important to the county, to the council. And one of the things you can see on the top left is where we are already missing, and that's just 19 and 20. We'll get the numbers for 21 very shortly. We're already missing our 3,300 units a year to hit our Council of Governments goals. And in the bottom right, what you see is HOC in orange starting to actually show up enough that you can see it. And particularly on the right side of that bottom right graph, that would be if we were producing 3,300 units a year, and you can see HOC on there. And so the point of this is to convey that HOC can actually be a primary channel of meeting the Council of Governments goals. And that's exciting, we think, because that means that's housing that's producing more affordable units per development and is also in public control, which, as we know, is important when things go haywire and people start having their housing jeopardized. And just, yeah.
So on the right side, the orange is what HOC.
Yep. First circle is, so the circle in the middle of that graph is actual. That's actually what happened in those years and what piece HOC was of it. Again, the fact that you can see HOC is pretty wild. You don't usually see the PHA showing up like this in, in unit delivery in jurisdictions nationally.
And then you're a sizable share of the existing development pipeline, setting aside. You're a sizable share of the existing production of housing in Montgomery County.
Which means publicly owned, publicly developed housing can be an actual real tool of the county to meet the Council of Governments goals. And that what's mapped there on that circle to the right of the center circle is HOC's pipeline as shown on that earlier slide. So it's just the commission approved, call it pipeline. It's not doing more deals than, it's not amplifying more or augmenting more of that pipeline.
And then the blue is?
Those would be the private share.
That would be the private share. So we would need to get both the blue up.
Exactly.
And have HOC able to deliver a greater volume.
Right. And so the general idea here is not necessarily that, you want those bars to be 100% orange. You don't, and our families don't. But it's that the greater that orange is, it means the less you need to rely on the private sector to meet your Council of Governments goals, or conversely, it means we might actually, exceed our annual goals more often, which we obviously need to do given that we're already behind. So it's just sort of an idle thought there. And then just to kind of put a finer point on it, this is an HOC share by percentage of, assuming kind of that 3,300 a year in units, and the blue at the bottom shows what HOC share would be across, the next bunch of years using the $50 million first HPF issuance, and that orange shows what that share would grow to with a second equally sized issuance. And so, again, just trying to make the point that
you could be more than 20% of our annual production of housing.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and again it's governmental ownership. We love all the things that come with that in terms of resident security, rent increases, things of that nature. The innovation that HOC puts into its projects. It's not just about getting units on the ground, as we'll talk about in a quick second. Just all the other things that HOC uses housing as a platform to do, and prioritizing affordability. So these aren't just, 3,300 units is 3,300 units. It doesn't speak to how many of them are actually going to be affordable. And obviously with HOC, you're going to get a much larger chunk of affordable. So. Again, this is just a slide about HOC's track record. Go to the next one. Thank you. And so getting back to one of the earlier points that, this idea that, again, that 30% affordability is not ambitious, and what we want to show is that this is the result. That's the start, right? But then the commission gets involved, staff puts its thinking caps on, and you wind up with a transaction. You wind up with a community that has units at 30% AMI, 40% AMI, 50% AMI, and all the way up. And so even though that's not required by the HIF, we wound up doing more because that's what we're doing all day. So we wanted to convey that the HPF has its requirements, but it's by no means the limit of what we're doing. And of course, in terms of the innovation point made on the previous slide, both of these buildings are being targeted for passive house, which would be first for Maryland, multifamily in Maryland, and we're targeting the senior building, which is the more prominent one there in the upper left, for net zero. And that would be a first in the Mid-Atlantic. And the bottom right is the old Holly Hall. So in terms of HSC's ability to take something and to produce more without losing affordability. This is the point, and this is why it's so important to get things into HSC ownership, because we can redevelop without net loss. And then
Fantastic. First passive house multifamily in Maryland. Amazing.
Yep. It's exciting. And we also hope that people then look at it, other folks look at it, and just immediately start copying off of it. And so really quickly to get into the cost estimates. So again, really just, it's a total replay of the first HPF. It's that 5% interest rate. It's $50 million. After the 20-year life of the bonds, Ms. Brown referenced this, but after the 20-year life of the bonds, so the council is appropriating the principal and interest for 20 years. Once that 20-year bond issuance is paid, the fund continues to revolve and there's no cost anymore. And so, and obviously for some of us, 20 years seems like a long time, but for, institutions, it's not such a long time. And so the project loans, that 5% is being repaid, and it helps to net out a substantial portion, even with increased interest rates. So that bond principal interest in the middle there, it's a little over $4 million a year. By comparison, when you approved the first HPF, the projection was at $3.4 million a year. It wound up going actually lower than that at about just under $3.1 million a year. So despite the dramatic interest rate increases, it still remains, sort of in the picture. And of course, there's the $2.5 million in project interest that's offsetting that every year. Go to the final slide.
And if we wanted to allow you to reinvest the interest, because that's getting repaid to the county, if we wanted to allow you to reinvest that in the fund, we would need to offset, is that the HIF or is that the...
We could do it through the HIF.
We could do it through the HIF.
We can appropriate more in terms of debt service payments through the HIF.
Right. Well, right. Right. Yeah, we had talked about that as also an anticipated enhancement of the strategy is to not require the funding to be repaid. And so I was just asking again, if we wanted to not require the funding to be repaid, it would have an impact on the HIF, because that's presently where that funding is received.
It would be less revenue to the HIF. Yes, we are getting back $2.5 million to the HIF
today.
And so if we were to keep it in this, that would be revenue loss.
So that's something we can consider in our conversations about housing in the next week or two. Okay.
And the final slide here is really just putting a bow on it. So as I mentioned, the original HPF issuance was estimated at 3.4. So this is about it wound up going off at about 3.06 and the original HPF net annual cost was approved, thinking it would be about a $1.4 million net annual hit to the HIF. It wound up being only $600,000 because rates were more favorable when we issued. In this case, with the recent increase in rates, we're also including a 50 basis point cushion here for obvious reasons. The projected gross P&I payment is a little over $4 million, and so the projected net annual cost is just $2.5 million less than that. So you're still at a pretty I think modest was the term used. I think that's right. For $1.6 million a year. For 20 years.
Have a significant share of the county's actual annual housing production. Yet the cost to the county, a net cost, maybe there's other ways that we're supporting it, but right here on this balance sheet, the cost of the county, net cost, $1.5 million. I mean, hard to see bigger impact for a county investment. Andrew.
Yeah, well, it's an exciting conversation. I think the other aspect of this, first of all, we tried something big and different, and it's worked. And now the question is whether or not we're going to double down on it. And I personally think we should. The other aspect of it is, if you look, there's two ways to look at the increase in the net cost. On the one hand, it's gone up, although it ended up being less than what we had thought. On the other hand, if the interest rate environment continues to go up as the Fed tries to tamp down inflation moving forward, it's going to get more expensive. And so, if you look at the difference between what it was 9 months ago to what it is today, and then you look at what it could be 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, 36 months from now, I mean, even at 5% mortgage interest rates in the country, that is still historically extremely low to where it would be. And so it still is, a pretty good deal from a historical standpoint. I mean, the other issue here is a couple things. One, you talk about social housing. It means different things to different people, I will say. It's like saying affordable housing, right? But the Public Housing Agency is social housing by definition. I mean, that is what you do, regardless of how exactly you define it. Not every project obviously is the same. And so if we're going to have a social, housing strategy to some degree, HOC has to be a big part of it. And this is showing that HOC certainly can be a big part of it, and perhaps even a bigger part of it. But, I think that we're going to have a broader question about the naturally occurring affordable housing strategy and how we address that. And I think it's an important conversation. But I do think that we had talked about coming back to this to see how it worked. We didn't know how it was going to work. It's working. Other places are taking notice. It's a very cost-effective way to do this. And I think that we ought to, build on our success here. And I think that this slide deck is really helpful to seeing what we can do and how much impact we can have. I mean, I don't know of other investments in affordable housing that we have made or can make that get 25-to-1 leveraging and get this level of affordability. So I just wanted to note that. And so it's exciting. I mean, that we have pushed for this, and I think that we have an opportunity to push a little bit more. I see Ms. Beck would like to make some comments, and I'll, if it's okay with you,
yeah,
you can yield to her.
Okay, thank you. First off, I worked at HOC for 6 years, and I loved what they do. I mean,
that's why we like you so much. I never knew why, and now we know.
They will always be an anchor for a lot of what happens for affordable housing. I think where the challenge had come in before in the discussion was how to pay for it and the impact on the county's debt capacity, because this does impact the county's debt capacity, even though we are getting the money back, which really does help from just the cash flow perspective. The bond rating agencies look at the total debt as our responsibility. And so I know earlier when we talked about SAG, council was very concerned. They didn't want to raise the GO bond limits 3 years from now by $10 million and $20 million. And if, I don't know what you're contemplating in terms of how to pay for this, but if you do it with debt, it would be all at one time. And so that's a bigger hit immediately. And you've talked a lot about fiscal sustainability. And so again, it's just a question of how it gets paid for. I think the other thing is, on a practical level, while I think the Housing Production Fund is in theory available for other housing partners, on a practical level, I don't know if that would ever happen, only because they have a huge pipeline. And I think HOC is a very sophisticated entity. They've been doing these complex deals for 30 plus years. I don't know if all the other folks we're trying to support have that same level of sophistication and have as many options. So I don't have to offend
anyone else right at this time, because we're not actually proposing that we create an HPF yet for any other entities. Okay. Although I just wanted to flag that as an idea that's worth exploring. I mean, It may be that their models just don't. It's not as relevant. I don't truly know, but
I think HOC has an advantage because it's about their deals, and they're lining up their deals. As a government entity, we also have to having a process to review it. They're doing their own deals, which is fantastic. We can't discount it. My only question is, how will you pay for it, and what is the impact?
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's the question that we always ask here, right? And it's the most appropriate question. And obviously, I'm glad you brought it forward. You know, a couple of things. One, the executive branch and Ms. Beck, you have come before us and talked about how the debt load has improved. That ratio that we always look at, and that is, very, really more than we look at it. We focus on geo bonds, but really, the broader markets are looking at the overall debt capacity of the county in a more significant way, and that 10% target number that everybody is looking to get to, and we strive to get to as well, has improved. It's largely improved because we have a lot more money. When it's been a while since I worked on fractions, but when you dramatically change one of the numbers, and you don't change the other one nearly as much, it changes the calculation there. I think there's a couple questions here. One, the executive branch has taken the approach to focus almost exclusively on cash. And there's a benefit to that, and I understand that. The benefit is it provides out-year flexibility. The challenge is it's not a particularly cost-effective way to fund affordable housing because it doesn't get the type of leverage that we're talking about here. You talk about, a lot of the nonprofits are getting 10 to 15 to 1 leveraging. This fund is getting 25 to 1 leveraging. The $14 million fund, I think, is getting approximately 4 to 1 leveraging. And so there is a balance in terms of fiscal responsibility of not overcommitting yourself on the one hand, but also making sure that you're spreading your dollars out to the greatest extent that you can in a responsible way. It's why most people don't buy houses in cash, not just because they can't afford it, which almost everybody can, but because if you can get a reasonable loan on a house, a fairly secure asset that can be commoditized, then and collateralized, then it makes more sense financially to do that. And here we're talking about a net of originally 600,000. Here we're talking about a net of less than 1.6 million. The question is, how much are we really giving up? How much are we really, quote unquote, taking away from the broader HIF here? If it's only 1.6 plus 600,000, you're talking about 2.2 million. We were going to fund HOC projects through the HIF anyway, and so actually, I would argue we're taking less out. We're competing less with the broader HIF. I think to the prior conversation of, and it may not be part of this conversation that we'll ultimately have about paying back. It's probably cleaner to set up a new fund rather than use the proceeds just from a fiscal accounting standpoint. It's probably it's probably clearer, but I think we can have that conversation. But ultimately the question here is, if we are going to continue to invest in affordable housing, which I think we are, I think this council is committed to it, the county executive is committed to it, we have a different approach for how to get there. The question is, what is the most responsible way to do that, and what is the most advantageous and cost-effective way to do that? It doesn't seem to me that a continuous effort to pile cash on cash on cash is the best approach, and I don't think that we're going to walk away from our commitments in affordable housing. We've made commitments here. We talked about our COG targets. We've talked about affordable housing being something that's important. That means preservation. That's been the county executive's primary focus. It means production that we're talking about here, but we got to fund it somehow, some way, and coming up with a plan for how it's going to be funded over a longer period of time to me makes more sense than throwing a lot of cash at it for a temporary period of time and then not really having a plan for what happens when that $40 million of cash or $14 million of cash for the prior account occurs. And so that's the conversation that we need to have when we talk about affordability. As you have raised, I think we also have to ask the broader question of, how do we get the most out of the money for the priorities that we have and do it in the most cost-effective and responsible way? And that's really, to me, what this conversation is about.
Yeah, and it's kind of morphing into the next item too, but the problem we have with the HIF, for instance, is you see over time in Naeem's packet, he's got by the end of the 6-year period, you're at $22 million a year for debt service. So I don't think we're saying a strategy every year to just pile lots of cash. What happened was when we got in the corrections on the income tax revenues so late in 22, that was a one-time pot of money that everyone knew they wanted to do more for affordable housing. So I wouldn't say that it's our idea that we would always just look for cash all the time. I'm just saying that at this point, we were trying to be more cautious in the early years with debt. And so that was why we went the direction we did.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. The $14 million account also is a cash-focused strategy. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of these approaches. It's just a slightly different
those are
approach
the loan repayments
to what we're talking about here.
Similar to how this revolves.
But it's funded with $8 million and $6 million in recordation tax premium. It's funded in cash. It's not bonded. But
there's different things. There's loan repayments, 14-something million dollars in 22 supplemental. And then we did put in some additional recordation tax premium, which is in the CIP. It's a funding source in the CIP, not the cash from the stuff that normally goes to the HIF. That's all in the HIF anyway.
Yeah, there's a couple of different funding sources coming back in to the CIP project.
Okay, thanks. Well, I last time when we addressed this issue, we ended up ultimately having a joint committee meeting. I'm not sure where the decisions are going to be. I'm very enthusiastic about this. I think that when things work, we should, double down on the things that are working in county government, move away from the things that aren't working. This is clearly working. I think we ought to, dive into this. I do think we have to have the discussion of how we pay for it and what the impact is. I think that's an important part of the conversation, but just wanted to signal, if that was part of the purpose of the conversation and presentation, that I do think that it is hard to find a more effective way that we will get more out of relatively modest amounts of money than the $600,000 that we put forward originally, or the $1.56 million net that we're talking about here. And I think this stuff is only going to get more expensive. We got into a comfort level that interest rates were going to stay really low forever. They're not. They may never get back to where they were again. They may not be where they are now for very long. And so I think that has to be part of our thought process in terms of affordability as well. And I think we ought to really think through whether if we look at this opportunity, is this an opportunity to make a one-time investment, or is this an opportunity to make a transformational impact on one of our biggest priorities in the county, in affordable housing? And I think this is something that we really ought to lean into and seize and think thoughtfully long-term about what it's going to mean, not just to the affordability, but to the actual achievement of our set goals and priorities.
Okay, so we want to create a second tranche of $50 million. We want, and so I think that's A. B, and I'm looking at Councilmember Joando because I don't know if you want to signal interest in these one at a time, or did you have some comments you wanted to make? But I'll just float out what I was going to suggest here, and then we can come back. Or B, I would like to explore not requiring the repayment, allowing the reinvestment in the fund. But C, in order to make that possible, that has a HIF impact. And I think we're going to have a bigger conversation about the HIF and all the funding that's available. I am grateful to the county executive for prioritizing preservation and for sending over a large amount of funding to be thought through how to use most effectively for housing. And so that provides a set of resources, and I think the question now is, how are we going to put them best to use? And certainly one possibility is to offset in the near term partially the HPF repayment. But I think I think there's a whole community of providers who are also saying, hey, we need a big investment in our models as well, as you know. And so, we're 2 years ago, we worked on the idea, Tim, you advised me on this, about creating a large preservation fund that could be bond funded. And I would like, I know Councilmember Friedson would like also to return to that conversation. And so I don't think, we're not going to have time to get into these issues today. But I think that's really the question is, can we create that $100 million preservation fund? What are the implications for the cash that has been recommended to us? Could that cash be used to offset the near-term cost of a $100 million preservation fund, also the HPF repayment, and then what would remain? And, you know, at the same time, the council has a budget challenge, and we're trying to reduce expenditures a bit, and there's a path forward to create more resources through a different type of tool, you know, through a leverage tool, while at the same time preserving the fiscal posture, at least over the short term, you know, in a stronger way. So I think that's what we kind of want to talk our way through and see how that looks. And so we can reserve the HPF repayment issue, I think, for that conversation. And for now, just focus on a strong recommendation to move forward with creating a second tranche of the HPF. So, colleagues, any comments here on doing that?
Guess I'll chime in. I haven't spoken. So.
Been waiting for you.
Yeah. I'm just trying to calculate, because it's often everything gets loaded up and I go. So, Ms. Beck, could you just explain to me, and Naeem, you can chime in as well on this, so I'm glad we're putting off the other issue. I wouldn't be prepared to deal with the repayment issue now, so glad that's not on the table. Just go a little deeper into the concern you're raising, or just flag, maybe not even concerned, but it might be too strong, but about how this is operating and how it goes to debt service versus, are you suggesting that, yes, it's been successful? Because I think the projects that the HOC has done have been great, those two that were highlighted today, and they obviously have more in the pipeline, but are you suggesting that maybe a combination approach would be better, or not to do that every year? What are you suggesting? What were you getting at underlying that concern? Is there a suggestion underlying the concern?
I think the main concern is a significant increase in debt all at one time.
Right.
That's the underlying concern, and not really having a clear sense of
as opposed
what
to
was being
over time
proposed in terms of how to pay for it. Yeah, as opposed to smaller amounts over time, which also give you some opportunity to course correct if you're not right. So that's really the fundamental issue.
concern.
And so, because even though we would say, oh, we'll take this pot of money and we'll use it to pay this, that's not how the bond rating agencies look at it. They're just looking at the overall debt service. And so that's trying to look at it through their lens.
Got it. And, I often am, get a little frustrated. And I talked about this when we had our budget presentation that, with things like SAG, and I'm not on GO committee, but I'm on the council, obviously, and the approach to the budget that in some contexts we have this version that we don't have enough money to do things, and we can't take the risk or expand the guidelines or use the revenues that we had because it's high. And then in other contexts, we're willing to push the envelope. And that's frustrating to me. I'd like to be a little more consistent with how we support for these public goods. And I'm not operating personally as a council member under the context that we need to cut from the budget. I don't think we need to. I think we need to make investments, and this is an investment, and you all have used it well. If someone wants to give you money to do what you do better, you should take it. And HOC has done that. Our job is to look across the whole gamut and say, okay, well, where else does it need to go, and how do we manage the debt and all the other concerns you're talking about? that's where for me it's a little difficult because I don't like that it's in some places that we do it more, in others we don't want to do it. And so I guess HOC, you are very sophisticated, and I have very great respect for the work that you all do. You all know, I've said this before to Ms. Brown and others, my dad lived in HOC housing at the Tanglewood Apartments for 25 years. And he passed away 5 years ago, but I still have some of his receipts from making his $900 payment, which was extremely affordable. And so you all provide great value. I guess my question to you would be, you talked about you have many ways of financing these projects, right? And so outside of the HPV, I think you mentioned this. Can you just talk a little bit about what else you're leveraging and what you're using to factor into these equations?
Yes, and it's an important question because one of those sort of other underlying strengths of the HPF is that it actually, we sort of call it growing the pie, right? So all of the affordable housing providers, in the county, we're generally using the same set of tools, right? And it's mostly the low-income housing tax credit. Oftentimes that brings tax-exempt bonds and volume cap, and these are all things that are limited, flowing from the federal level. They're limited. It's the same amount every year. The pie is the same size. And so one of the advantages of the HPF is that it allows us to avoid using those sources for these transactions. And so it actually it's part of the the production element of the HPF. So it allows us to not only do more, but to do more without touching the other resources that we know some transactions can't. There's some transactions that they don't have the revenue income to make this work. Right. So it's in some cases for those kinds of transactions. And also the point earlier was raised that it also is a lighter impact on the HIF. If Westside Shady Grove had needed a HIF loan, and it actually did get a HIF loan to bridge to the HPF being ready, it would have needed $14 million from the HIF in that year. And so it's really this growing the pie approach. The HPF is not only about producing more housing, but it's actually about a rising tide lifting all ships by making sure these other dear resources that are limited, that none of us can do anything about, to continue to do what they're doing and not take from one another. So I
appreciate that. And Naeem, I guess my last question for you: if we were to move forward, and I supported the first tranche, the how it's paid for question, what would be changing in the proposal that was just made by the Councilmember Reamer? Would just be doing the same thing we did?
Well, I think this goes into the second item. Is that my recommendation was that we not approve the NOAA fund, the $40 million for now, and we come back after budget, perhaps as soon as the summer, once we've done some more analysis on the debt service impacts, on the options that we can use, not just the $40 million, but other resources that might be available, and we have a more comprehensive discussion about the options. It may be that the ultimate option might be a mix of doing a second tranche and some other options, or it may be we do a perhaps $75 million HPF tranche and look at some options. So that's the recommendation from staff, is that we do revisit this with more detail.
And not do anything now?
No, other than not approve the $40 million NOAA fund at this time and come back perhaps as soon as the summer.
But we're not technically discussing that right now, right?
No.
We're talking about the
the HPF money. But yeah, that's kind of a...
Because we haven't had...
We have to get the DHCA first.
Right. So with respect to the tranche 2 and HPF, I mean, if we were to move forward, I think it would have a debt service impact. And so we would need to wait, bring in GO committee and talk about that as well.
Okay. That might have made it less clear. But okay, could you restate what's your proposal?
Okay, well, the proposal was to create a second tranche and $50 million. And the existing one has an annual impact of $1.56 million, right? That's
existing one's 600,000 net. Correct. So it's paying back 5%. So 5%, just so everybody understands what these numbers mean in layman's terms, 5% of 50 million is 2.5 million. So when you net it out, you get 2.5 million back, which is being sent to the HIF. That's what you're suggesting we not pay back. That in and of itself has a significant fiscal impact. And then in addition to that, the reason why it's 600,000, it's 3.1 million. We thought it was going to be 3.4 million. It turned out to be 3.1 million because the interest rates were preferable and favorable at the time that it was issued, which is great. That's a 3.1 net out 2.5, which is the repayment of 5% of 50 million for the bond fund. It's like a mortgage. You're paying a percentage on it, each time. That is where 600,000 comes from. So just to be clear,
the slide we're on right
yeah,
now.
The next one is 1.56 million. That's because instead of it being 3.1 million, the cost is 4.06 million because there are increased interest rates, which is significant, but not, disproportionate, I think is probably fair. And so the net out of the 2.5 million after 4.06 million is 1.56 million. Now, if you don't pay it back into the HIF, then the net cost goes up to 4.06 million projected. Mm-hmm. And the net number for the first issuance goes to 3.1 million. So I just, so that in and of itself has a significant
all right, so
a significant impact. So
I see that on the slide here. So the net annual impact of a second HPF is projected to be $1.56 million per year. So I think what I would propose is that we recommend that to the council, and we ask the GO committee chair, would she like to take this up as a joint committee on the debt consideration, or is she comfortable approving, basically letting it go to full council, I suppose, or weighing in on it at full council, something to that effect. So,
yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm supportive of it. I mean, I'm not gonna. I've raised my concerns about other things. I'm not supportive of, to use the double negative. I just want us to be supportive of other things too. So, I wanted to make my point there. But I'm supportive of that, and we'll talk about the other issue at a later date. I did want to ask you all briefly. We kind of breezed through the operating, just because we don't have you before us a lot. How is the voucher list going, and where are we on that? And how is rent non-repayment going?
So, and just to clarify, the voucher list. Do you mean the waiting list?
Yeah, sorry, waiting list. Okay. Yes.
So
I know it's long, but I've just said
it's long, and it's gotten longer.
Okay.
When we looked at it, I think a year ago, we were reporting about 30,000 on the list. Most recently, I think we're at 46,000 on the wait list.
Wow,
it's a pretty big list, but we continue to work through. We're a little bit challenged in that folks are on the street looking for homes longer, and I think it's a reflection of what's happening in the rental market around us.
Yeah.
But we continue to do all that we can, including sometimes extending the time a person has a voucher so that they can be properly housed. With respect to our arrearages, we are currently at 5.4 million in arrears. We do, as I acknowledged before, some support from the county in that we do have some funding that will help to offset that. And our primary goal and the goal of the commission is to continue to have people remain stably housed, because absent that, we're looking at pretty significant evictions, as we've shared with you. And we're working really hard to avoid that. And we think we can, in large part, as well as to encourage folks after they've been helped to do something more to help themselves. So it's a two-pronged approach.
Okay.
We're making some progress there.
All right. Well, keep us posted. Obviously, we don't, as you shared, we all have this goal of not wanting those folks to be evicted, and that's why we provided the support. So I appreciate you keeping us up to date on those numbers. But back to the original question, I'm fine with the proposal.
All right. We have a committee recommendation. Did you want to add something there?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so the repayment and the cost will both be addressed in the subsequent conversation.
which will be the conversation about the HIF and.
Yeah. So the second, so we're making a committee recommendation on the second 50 million, and we're also looking into the repayment question, but not necessarily
We're not making a decision on that at this time.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I strongly agree.
All right. Terrific. I think that's going to be it for the day. Apologies to our nonprofit partners and DHCA team who are here and haven't had a chance, although this is quite germane to your work. So, it's all one conversation, but we're going to have to break now. So, thank you, HOC. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, Mary Beck. Thank you, Naeem. And thanks to everyone. We are adjourned.
I think that's right. From 1851 through 1861, that was his reign as postmaster.